With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Last Monday night, it was a pair of very different races. Jameson Sampaio drove off into the Laguna Seca Sunset in the MX-5s, and Adam Brockway won an extremely dramatic road course pack race in the GT4s at Daytona. Today, we go doubly international. We take on a couple of shortened layouts of familiar Formula One tracks, but I can guarantee you there will be no shortage of action. Welcome to round 3 of the PRL MX-5 Cup Series, live from the virtual Suzuka circuit, and later tonight it'll be round 3 of the PRL GT4 Fixed Series, live from the virtual circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Hi everybody, Joey Tebben here, alongside Lorenzo Bonder in the booth with our producer Hugo Luis behind the scenes. Lorenzo, it's time to kick it off with the MX-5s, driving past the Ferris wheel here at Suzuka. A very familiar track, but not a very familiar layout of this track necessarily.
No, not specifically, but this actually was the layout that was used by NASCAR when they came around here in the 90s. So for Americans, I think this is the most closest resemblance of seeing this layout being used in quite a while in international racing. A track that for this format is not going to have a lot of overtakes like we're probably going to see, we saw in Laguna Seca. It's a little bit more truncated, but it's very easy for you to make an error, especially during the transition from turn number 8, which is the exit of Dunlop, going to turn number 9, because you immediately go back into the track right after the S's, and that can and drivers can get caught off so easily right there. There you go. You don't have too much run. It's kind of like a blind crash, and if you miss it by just 1 centimeter, it's basically a race gone, man.
This is round 3 of the season here, and it's really the only bull ring we go to this season. As we take a look at the rest of the schedule, we've got full-length tracks coming up. Last season, we went to a lot of shortened layouts. We went to short Barcelona, short Sebring, short Silverstone even. But after this, I mean, most sports are pretty short track. I guess Zandvoort and Mid-Ohio are too, but everything else, it is full-size tracks for these MX-5s. Personally, I'm looking forward to VIR. That's going to be a pretty crazy race, I'm sure, but everything coming up here, a mix of American tracks and international tracks. It's easy to have a good MX-5 Cup race basically anywhere, but it always helps to have those full-length tracks because these cars love those longer straights when they're racing together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the aspect of you having fast flowing tracks like Mosport, and then you go to Donington, then go to Mosport, which are very fast flowing for these cars. Then you got a little bit more truncated, maybe with VIR and Mid-Ohio, even though they're still fast for the MX-5s. It's a little bit interesting for you to try to navigate as well and try to do strategies. And then you go to Sonoma and Zandvoort, which are truncated, a little bit of a mirror tracks of what we're seeing right now, but of course they're elongated in terms of length. And then you go to Road America, where it's basically a straightforward shootout between the cars, just straight drafters and everything, all the way down from the start finish line to, let's just say, the Canada corner, to say the very least.
We already saw a great race there in the GT3s this season. Hopefully we see a great season finale in the MX-5 when we finish off at Road America in a couple of weeks, or a couple of months rather, if I'm being specific. Here are the drivers' standings so far after 2 rounds. Jameson Sampaio, no surprise, he has been absolutely dominant in this series. Ran away with it at Watkins Glen, ran away with it at Laguna Seca, and he has a big lead over Bradley Holly, who was last season's champion. Ryan Kings has been consistent. He's in 3rd, and then Jason Larson and Kevin Sandiego are 4th and 5th. Kevin Sandiego currently at the top of the practice timesheets, by the way, so look for him to compete for the win tonight. Michael Chase, Andrew Sharp, Austin Bartlett Chase, Eugenio Polici, and Kyle Herlitsky round out the top 10 in the standings at the moment. And the team standings is going to be very, very interesting this season because Jameson Sampaio is running for his own team. You can see CFPM Sampaio down there in 8th place, so Jameson is not going to be in contention for the team's championship with just one car. It looks like it's going to be between Dark Horse Esports, Whataback, and Crikey Esports, and maybe even Unlimited Slip. It's going to be a 4-team battle. Dark Horse Esports, of course, a big lead with sort of an OP lineup with Kelly Greenhoe, Ryan Kings, and Kevin Sandiego. Whataback with Mark Kalin and Bradley Holly right behind. Crikey Esports is 1 driver down, unfortunately, tonight because Malcolm Foster is not here tonight. And Unlimited Slip, of course, always looking for that win with Michael Chase and Austin Bartlett Chase. YS Motorsports is 5th, Pro Drive Esports, Fossil Racing, the aforementioned Sampaio team, and Apollo Racing Club and Hub Racing round out the top 10 in the team standings right now. And before we can go any further, we have to thank the sponsors who make all of these Precision Racing League broadcasts possible. First of all, and as always, VCO, the virtual competition organization, helping us out here at RaceSpotTV and helping make every single Precision Racing League broadcast possible this season. Our coverage is also brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. From ASR to Racebox, Racebox Sim Racing offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount, also using the Precision5 coupon code. And from Racebox to RaceLab, RaceLab Apps helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Also, the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with the Butt Kicker. And last but not least, Ninja Trader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Of course you are. Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, Ninja Trader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. Ninja Trader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Practice has not quite come to an end, still in the dying seconds of the practice session, but we will get right into qualifying here soon. It's an interesting change at the top of the timesheets, and by the way, qualifying has just ticked into session, so we are officially in qualifying now. Practice has come to an end. A couple drivers have gotten their laps down. Kevin Sandiego currently sits on pole, but we haven't seen a lot of drivers we expect to contend for pole out on track just yet. But Lorenzo, it's open qualifying. Talk about how the draft is going to be important in this race. It's going to be pretty darn important to get a draft on your qualifying lap as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in here, as first and foremost, you see the weather conditions. So about a 73 ambient and 100 in the track. So it's a very, very high. It's picking up the heat. So the track is building up the heat, and it's going to be a little bit hard for you to get within the Japanese rubber, which is infamous for wasting your tires. And in the track that you're going to be changing directions quite often, you need to manage those tires appropriately. So you need the grip, especially if you are under the draft. If you get that under the draft and you don't have grip to make overtakes at turn number 1 and number 2 specifically, where this will be the main passing opportunity in this track, in my opinion, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. But in qualifying, if you can keep up with someone in the start-finish line, as we see a car spinning out of the back, you can pretty much navigate yourself through the remainder of the lap without too much time loss.
So for the last 2 weeks, the big conversation point has been the changing of the tires. It wasn't really a strategy we saw in last season in the MX-5 Cup Series, but Jameson Sampaio comes onto the scene. He's always changing just one side of the tires, almost NASCAR style, like you would do on an oval. Is he going to be doing that again at Suzuka here with a lot of right-hand turns? Is the whole field going to finally follow him? Is that what you're going to need to do to keep up after this pit cycle coming up here?
I think so. This is something that Jameson and you're going to see here also Felipe as well. They used to do that quite often in the Brazilian leagues when they run the MX-5 consistently. Because they were always practicing and they saw that one tire change gave it about like 3/10 to 4/10 of a second per lap in terms of advantage in comparison to a guy that is trying to manage their tires from the start to the end. So it made sense for them to change the tires in a race that is a little bit elongated than normal standards in the MX-5. So we're definitely going to see left-hand tires being changed, but the question is what tire does it get changed? In my opinion, it might be the front lefts, but I wouldn't be surprised if you get like 2 tire changes instead of 1.
Jameson Sampaio at the head of your screen there in that CFPM car, giving the draft to Felipe Sendi behind, and it worked out for him. Felipe up onto the front row now, displaces Eugenio Polici from that front row, but it's still Kevin Sandiego with a 0.3 of a second lead on pole right now. Of course, Dark Horse Esports with Kevin Sandiego and Kings and Greenho, they know how to work together, so I would not be surprised to see all 3 of them even higher up on this grid after they all work together. But we can see Jameson and Felipe working together, not teammates here, but clearly both aligned as Jameson leads this train. He's going to get a completely vanilla lap, a lap completely on his own. He's going to try and help Felipe to maybe even jump Kevin Sandiego rather, for the pole as they navigate through the final corner.
Yeah, and if you also can notice, there's a little bit of an interesting aspect of you downshifting the car from third to second gear, right? Right as you go through the apex and into the basically the peak of the crest, then you really want to do that just to try to save as much torque as you can possibly save, as we see cars spinning around back and forth. And that's the difficulty of getting a lap in a track like this, as Jameson's gonna go through the S's. You just can't navigate appropriately to a traffic that is gonna be so convoluted like this. So getting a clean lap is gonna matter the most than anything else.
I believe that's one of the Fossil Racing cars up ahead. Gonna try and get out of the way, but it is so difficult to get out of the way in the S's here. He actually pulls onto the grass, so I guess that's as good as you can do. Jameson navigates through the odd transition between the normal Suzuka we're all used to, and then you loop around, get back to the front straight almost instantly. He is running some fantastic laps. He did a 59.7 or a 57.9 actually. That's more of a fantastic lap. He did it on his lonesome. He had no draft, and he still put it up in third. You also saw Felipe Sendi improve on the lap before by about a 1/10, but there's still another 1/10 or 2/10 they need to find to beat Kevin Sandiego. They're probably not going to find it with the car parked in the apex there.
Yeah, a little bit of a weird moment between the 2 drivers right there, but it's kind of funny that Sandiego got that 57.7 a little bit in the earlier portions of practice. It might be allied with the fact that the track might have been colder when it started qualifying. One of the things about the Japanese tracks is this: when they pick up the heat, it's usually going to be stuck for the remainder of the race, and it kind of dies down a little. Takes a little bit longer to die down, and the rubber eventually takes just as long to die down. So this is why Japanese tracks, they are so difficult for you to drive, because you have to think about tires, not so much about fuel, just because you're not running the elongated. We see Lichi have a little bit of an issue in turn number 1, not the first, definitely will not be the last year, Joey, but if you try to mind about tires too much, that's the tricky part, because you cannot find the right balance with this setup from the MX-5s. You need to just have your car fuel at the very peak.
And it looked like Felipe was just kind of drifting around through the entirety of the S's on that lap, so no real surprise that he was 0.6 slower on that lap. Ryan King's here getting a draft from his teammate Kevin Sandiego. He crosses the line with a 57.7. It's close to Kevin Sandiego's time, and make that Dark Horse Esports 1-2 on the grid. I mentioned that these teammates know how to work together, and I've been proven right, and I'm sure Ryan Kings is very, very happy about that. Make that 1-2 for Dark Horse Esports. Let's see if Felipe Sendi was a little bit less slidey on this lap, and he get any help from Jameson Sampaio? No, still about half a second off the pace. Both of them are going to abort their runs and come back to the pits. Nathan Miller just put a great lap in as well. The number 6 up in the number 8 spot, getting a little bit of help from one driver ahead of him as well. Nathan Miller, a new driver this season. We didn't see him last season, but he's getting a little bit of help from the 64 Kevin Bergquist, who is right ahead of him on track, or right behind him in the order, I should say. He's in 11th. He's going to try and drag Nathan Miller a little bit further forward here.
Yeah, and just to quickly mention, the second gap that separates the P1 to the 1 second gap total goes all the way up to, you can put P20 because it is just marginal things. It's like 1.051 seconds, so it's basically nothing. So everybody close to one another around this track, which is a fast lap, not the easiest lap, especially that transition turn number 1. You see Jerome Stanton just going into the AstroTurf. You can actually get an off track on that AstroTurf if you just ride it too aggressively. So I think this lap is going to be validated, but it's one of those tracks, you know, that it demands precision driving through this first and second sector, because if you cannot capitalize on these first 2 sectors, your last sector goes up to the bend immediately, and it's hard for you to recover that because there's not too many places where you can recover line-wise or aggression-wise on the last sector.
Here comes Kings for try number 2. Can he find those 40 thousandths of a second to beat his teammate? Not quite. Still about 2/10 down on that second lap. If you're wondering, where's Bradley Holly? Where's Kelly Greenhoe? Well, that's a good question. Kelly Greenhoe was in the session in practice, but he did not get out in the qualifying session. He actually wasn't out in any of the practice session, as far as I know. So I don't think we'll be seeing Kelly Greenhoe tonight. And Bradley Holly, unfortunately, also not here tonight. So 2 protagonists of the championship last year, 2 protagonists of the championship this year will not be here to race tonight. This will likely become both of their drop weeks. Michael Chase, we watch him through the final corner, getting a little bit of help from Derek Putnam. 2 drivers who were around with us for the full season last season. Putnam gets out of the way. Chase comes to the line. It's a good lap. Unfortunately, it is no improvement. Michael Chase was 6th. He's going to stay in 6th. Now here comes Ryan Kings in the 43 to come down pit lane. Him and Kevin Sandiego, I think, are going to go out for one more run, put a new set of tires on these cars, and I guess try and extend their gap, or maybe they're happy with pole. I can't imagine they are, though. It's a pretty slim margin.
It's a very slim margin between the Americans and the Brazilians, so it's kind of like if you sneeze, you can lose pole position just like that. But even then, you can get guys like Polici, Chase, and Kalen just trying to approach in a very surprising fashion, as we're going to see. Polici's lap might be around 48, 58. I was suggesting 58.4, but it was a little bit closer than that. But the one thing you have to do, and this is kind of like a known thing about the MX-5s, you need to capitalize the lap within the first 3 laps of your stint. If you cannot get a quick lap within those first 3 laps on your tire, especially in a track like this, you're gonna have to be, I think, Ayrton Senna or something like that. Japanese would like that, for you to pull a magic lap and get that pole position. So it's gonna be a little bit of a tricky negotiation if those who are just about to come into the pit lane to get a really good run in these last few minutes.
Speaking of the 2 Brazilians, here are Felipe Senni and Jameson Sampaio going out for one more run. And who have they found themselves behind? They found themselves behind the 2 teammates who are on the front row. But Ryan Kings and Kevin Sandiego both going to back out here. Michael Chase going to do a little bit of Japanese rallycross out there. And Felipe Senni will now only have Kevin Sandiego in front of him. No quadruple draft for you, Felipe. He's going to have to hope that Jameson can pull him forward here. They might have to switch. They might not have time to switch around, actually. If Jameson wants to get a draft from Felipe to get there on the front row, he might not have time for that. He might be on full pull forward mode. And that was a bad exit by Felipe. I think he got in the grass there.
Yeah, he clipped the grass a little bit, as we're going to see, 4th and all the way down to the 5th gear. And not far behind, you see Kings and Sandiego tagging along with the number 81 of Sene. Now, if you're Sene, if you watch 2 laps, you just cannot get fast enough. You try to break draft and try to get a little bit of separation between the 2 cars, the 2 teams specifically, and play some qualifying strategies right here, because you don't have too much time to do that. So gonna have to go for the committed and try to see if it works out at the end of the day. So it's gonna be an interesting next those 2 laps. It's gonna be an interesting one.
57-second laps here. Will be 2 more laps at the line if Senna and Sampaio want them. Through the final corner, Felipe comes. Better exit this time. Far less clipping of the grass there. I don't think it's going to be a great lap, though. It wasn't an especially clean lap, but he will have the draft from Jameson here. He's actually going to pull out of it. He is going to ditch this attempt. Is he going to pull behind Ryan Kings? No, he's not. He's going to pull out of the session entirely, I think. He's happy with 3rd for now, and I think he thinks he can improve from that.
Yeah, because one thing that is going to count so much as we see Ryan going into turn number 1 and 2 is going to be the start. I think the start over here, more than Laguna Seca specifically, dictates how the race is going to be raced at the end of the day, right? Because you're going to be marking each other out. You're not going to go anything up to 4th gear in the Estes section, so it's going to be basically, you know, playing tag and try to fuel save and go for that fuel number at the end of the day, and make sure the tire, if you go for the tire strats, work out at the end of the day for you, especially in a hot track like Suzuka.
Jameson Sampaio stealing a little bit of draft from Christian Lesiak up ahead. It's not going to do him much good, though. 1 more lap at the line for him, 1 more lap at the line for Ryan Kings, and both of them are going to have to do it all on their lonesome. They're going to have no help in front of them. Jameson Sampaio might be able to find a 10th or a 10th and a half to hop up to 3rd, but it's going to be a tough ask, and it's going to be a tough ask for Ryan Kings to find 40 thousandths of a second to beat his teammate Kevin Sandiego as well. As the time ticks down, that actually wasn't Christian Lesiak who was helping Jameson Sampaio. That was one of the other many slime green cars in this field. Oh. Ryan Kings clips the grass, and that's going to be the end of his qualifying run, but I don't think he'll be too dissatisfied with the front row here. Here's Pierre Robitaille through the final corner. Can he improve on his last shot from 21st on the grid? Stays out of the grass. It looks like a clean lap. Let's see what it is at the line. 58.4. Good lap. That puts him up into 15th.
Yeah, Balfa right into the top 5. That was a solid lap. You know, getting a really clean run on the final turn can do you a little bit of a favor, but you need to get that downshift correction. As we see, Venaro looks like to be a solid lap, but I don't think it's going to be a massive improvement, as he just goes one place up, going from P21 to P20.
Just waiting for a few other stragglers to finish their laps. Polici, Senni is actually still on track trying to go for another lap, and Nathan Miller as well, but we can actually see them in the distance crossing the line. You can see the ants on your screen finishing their final laps. A few drivers getting some spins out here, but no real surprises here at the end of qualifying, and I believe we do have the grid officially set here. So I got a question for you. Well, he drives around the world from Laguna to Suzuka. Tell me, where in the world is Kevin Sandiego? Well, he's on pole alongside Ryan Kings. Felipe Senni and Jameson Sampaio making an all-Brazilian 3rd and 4th. Eugenio Polici and Michael Chase are row 3. Mark Kalin, a solid qualifying in 7th alongside Nathan Miller. Jerome Stanton in the Fossil Skull highlighter green and purple car is alongside Austin Bartlett Chase. Jason Larson and Kevin Bergquist are 11th and 12th, and Bergquist's teammate Ian Cabana is right behind in 13th. David Van Roy a little bit further down than he's used to in 14th, and Pierre Robitaille and Christian Lesiak are 15th and 16th. Andrew Sharp for YS Motorsports is 17th, and Kyle Herlitsky is in 18th, but the hits keep on coming. Patrick Cowgill for Whataback in 19th, Andrew Venaro in 20th, Kimball, Klein, Putnam, and St. Aubin round out the top 24, but there are 6 more. It's a 30-car grid tonight. Pete Thomas, Buddy Chamberlain, Robert Gallinotto, William Lee were the last 4 drivers to set a lap time. Kelly Greenhoe did not practice or qualifying. I would not expect him to take to the grid tonight, and nor would I with Anthony Cortina. But we have 28 legitimate cars on the grid here tonight. Everybody is going to rack up. We got a few seconds here until the lights get ready to go out, and I think we actually have everybody on the grid fairly early. Actually, I think we do have a couple stragglers. We still technically have to wait for Greenhoe and Cortina because they're not in the session, but they're registered. So we just gotta vamp for 30 more seconds. Lorenzo, you got 10 seconds. Tell me what the keys to victory are.
Tires, and a little bit of luck, because Suzuka can be a little bit of a snake to bite you in the head.
Tires. I would say exactly the same thing. We're also waiting for Josh Kimball, 21st place. So we'll see if he can make it onto the grid here in the next 10 seconds. But the lights are ready here at Suzuka. It's Kevin Sandiego on pole for the first time in the Precision Racing League alongside his teammate Ryan Kings. Are we going to see a new winner for the first time this season? It's lights out and away we go for MX-5 Cup Racing at Suzuka. Kevin Sandiego with a solid start, Ryan Kings with a solid start. Here we go at Suzuka East.
Looks like Sandy got a really good launch on the outside. They're going to commit for turn number 1 and 2.
Felipe Senni almost to the inside of Ryan Kings, has to back out of it. Now he's going to go side by side with Sampaio. Is he going to back out of this and let Jameson stay in line? Yes, he is. He's going to back out. He's going to think about the grand scheme of the race here and get in this train. Single file up through the S's, a little bit of side by side further back, but other than that, it's been a very, very clean start. It's a short run to turn 1. You're not really building up very high speeds in these MX-5s coming into turn 1, and it looks like we've all made it through the first half of this lap clean.
Yeah, but here comes the trickiest part. You know, you have to commit towards the last corner. Still cold tires, so the car will be a little bit slidier than usual. So some cars going to be caught off guard doing the transition to the peak part all the way down to the start-finish line transition. As we wrap up lap number 1, and San Diego resurging from the ashes like what happened the last race. Instead of being the hunter on Sampaio, now he's the hunted.
Side by side, Mark Kalin and Jerome Stanton switch places from the start. Kalin took a little bit of a peek to the inside there. Not going to work out for Mark just yet, but we know Mark Kalin. We know he's going to be aggressive, and we know he's not necessarily content to sit in a train like this. We'll see if he can make the move on Jerome Stanton here. It's a bad exit up through the S's, but luckily it kind of evens out in the train like this. There's a bad exit from you, then there's a bad exit from the car 3 cars in front of you, and suddenly you're back in the train. So we keep driving up here through the second part of the S's, through the third part of the S's, now back onto the front straight on this familiar track to NASCAR drivers such as Mark Kalin. And now back onto the front straight. Kalin didn't really gain or lose anything there. He's still just stuck in this train behind Jerome.
And Stanton just slightly clipping the grass right there, but keeping the grip on the track itself. And right in front of the Sampaio, looking a little bit more aggressive on Kings, and Kings already covering off the inside, going to turn number 1. But other than that, pretty much what comes start race.
Jerome Stanton, huge drift through turn 2. He saves it, but he has to save it in the grass, and that's going to be a strong run for Jerome. Halted for just a moment. He's going to keep falling down 14th, 15th, 16th. Going to join the train right in front of Pierre Robitaille, and that will be P15 for Jerome Stanton. 8 spots and just a simple spin in turn 1. We've seen these MX-5s. They love to spin around. They've been penduluming around a lot more, especially with these open setups this season, and Jerome, unfortunately, is the first victim.
Yeah, and now how does he manage the rest of the tires? Because he got a really big slide on turn number 1, right? And if you burn off the tires right here, if you pick up the heat, especially in the scorchy Japanese heat, it's going to be hard for you to bring it down because you're transitioning every single time. Let's look at the lead right there.
Jameson Sampaio swerving, trying to get by Ryan Kings, but Kings is doing a great job of defending here. Not a single mistake so far, but Jameson is getting aggressive. He is making his presence very much known. And Christian Liziak and Frank Klein go flipping down the front straight. Patrick Cowgill has to avoid. Destruction for Frank Klein. He found one of the openings in the Armco barrier. I think 2 cars just having a little bit of an argument, trying to get into braking for turn 1, and we have a huge accident, wiping out 2 drivers from the middle of our field. Also, we've got an update on Kelly Greenhoe. He's had wheelbase issues, so that's why he's not here tonight. But here's what happened to Klein and Liziak, and that is a very, very awkward incident coming into turn 1.
Yeah, just trying to negotiate and look at the deviations out of some of the cars that could have been going wrong so badly, as we see Jameson try to look for the outside, but already slightly covered off in the middle right there. But what line does he take on turn number 1? Here he goes. No, doesn't commit because he has to save the car from spinning out on turn number 1.
It's a very, very interesting line from Jameson Sampaio. Every single lap coming into turn 1, it's like he's trying to find a way to drive around the outside, or he's trying to find a gap or force Ryan Kings into a mistake, but it just seems like he loses time every single time. But let's ride on board with Buddy Chamberlain You can see that little argument ahead of him with Klein and Lysiak. Buddy's driving along, and suddenly,
Watch
oh my
out.
God, I think Frank Klein hit a landmine.
Sheesh. Unless Japanese started the space program or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be a record. Last week at Daytona, we had some air in the GT4s at Daytona, but that's got to be a new PRL height record for this season. So, congratulations, Frank Klein. I'm sure that's some solace as you sit in the pits getting 2 minutes of repairs. Sampaio and King side by side again, but still, Jamison not able to make that outside work. I think he's clearly looking at making this move, but King's has been rock solid. Sampaio's going to peek to the outside again as we go up through the S's. He's going to have to back out of it again. It's going to be tough to make this move on Kings. He is making that a very, very wide MX-5.
Yeah, let's look at, meanwhile, let's look at St. Albert. Oh my God.
Call him Ryan Newman. Matthew St. Aubin has an MX-5 land on the top of him, but looks like he got no damage out of it, so he's lucky. I guess they build those MX-5 roll cages pretty strong.
That would be true. But I was looking at Jamison's lines. His lines are quite interesting. You know, is that line between you being aggressive? I think he's gonna get that run once again. But then again, Kings is getting the benefit of having his teammate getting that run. So that's why it makes it hard for you to overtake. So he takes the outside line and he's puzzling every single lap. It's kind of like trying to solve a puzzle. How can he solve the overtaking issue that he has in front?
Last season, when we had all sorts of these bullring style races, when we had road course pack racing going at places like the Monza Junior circuit, at the short Sebring as well, we talked a lot about fuel saving. We talked a lot about how that was going to be how drivers were going to get out of this train. And is that basically going to be their only option right now? Like, if you're in this train behind Jason Larson from 10th to, what, about 20th, are you just focusing on saving fuel right now, or are you actually trying to navigate your way forward in the train on track?
If you're on a train like this right now, that would go all the way down to the top 10, you're following close to one another, then I gotta say, you gotta make a few moves. Even if you try to lose one, you're still gonna be within the train. You're not gonna lose touch. But if you're like Jamison, Ryan, Kevin, and Felipe, you need to be mindful of your fuel. Maybe go for an overcut or an undercut strategy at the end of the day. So that's why I think the Brazilians are trying to go for the overcut whenever Kings in San Diego pit, as we see inside for Cabana, and it's going to be a clean move on Stanton, looks like, but is he going to fight back with the S's?
Jerome Stanton on a drive back forward through the field. He's not clear of Cabana, but he saves it. Just barely ends up out in the grass, but I do not know how that MX-5 is still pointing in a straight line. Jerome Stanton was very much not clear there, but he's gotten away with it, and his drive forward continues through the field.
How they managed to pull that off at the end of the day. Meanwhile, I think looks like Lychee lost a few places right there. I see a car spinning.
Yeah, where did he go? Did he get buried in the gravel? I think he got it going again, but yeah, he was about 7th. He's fallen down to 9th. Eugenio Pellicci just ahead of that Jason Larson battle on your screen, the 27 at the head. But David Van Rooy and Larson side by side here for the last spot in the top 10 into turn 1. This has ended badly before with Klein and Lysiak, but they're going to stay side by side clean through turns 1 and 2. David Van Rooy easily on the inside, and Larson now under attack from Bergquist as David Van Rooy takes the head of this train.
Yeah, and the problem for Van Rooy is he's not going to have any draft to work with. I think the closest car is Lychee, and he's right about a second and a half, and a second and a half is too far for you to be within draft range and try to gain that speed. So he's going to be a sitting duck on the next lap or two. Whenever Larson, Bergquist, and Stanton and Cabana eventually get close. So this could turn easily into a three-way scrap when going to turn number 1, and definitely a 3 wide if you're feeling courageous to do that.
Very well could have 3 wide here. Jerome Stanton, Jason Larson, Kevin Bergquist. Jerome is getting aggressive. He's going to try and make a pass on the grass. He's going to have to back out of it because there's simply no room there, and he gets into the back of Kevin Bergquist as well. Stanton is getting very, very aggressive here, but he just might lose this spot to Ian Cabana now. The driver who he passed 1 lap ago, he's going to have to get by him again now.
yeah, going through the S's one more time, but this time it benefits Cabana a little bit. So sealing the deal, Cabana right there, but now Stanton's being challenged also by her lead skate. So it's a little bit of a complicated situation for Stanton because he gets so many lines. If you lose one line, you lose about, let's just say, 1/2 of a second, and the guy behind you can, if he wants to go or if he's feeling to go for that move, he might be able to go for that move.
Andrew Sharp. Andrew Sharp off in the S's, all on his lonesome. Also, there's been a change for second. Kevin Sandiego is still in the lead, but Jameson Sampaio has gotten by Ryan Kings. Felipe Sendi looking for the next move on Ryan Kings, not able to make it into turn one, but we finally have a shift. And now there's about 1.3 seconds between Sandiego and Sampaio. Kevin Sandiego is just kind of running a race of his own right now, while the other three fight for the first spot in line.
Yeah, but we know Jameson has that pace to try to match Sandiego at the end of the day and get closer to the 88. Let's see what happened to Andrew Sharp. Oh, that wasn't all on his own. That was slightly assisted, but I don't think that was intentional assist nevertheless. Just a slight mistake in the middle of the big pack.
He was pendulumed around after clipping Andrew Venaro there, and Patrick Cowgill, unfortunately, nowhere to go in those tight confines in the middle of the track. Here comes Felipe again in the draft down the front straight. Kings isn't necessarily going to block, but Felipe Sendi elects not to actually go for the move, as there's a big block between Michael Chase and Mark Kalin. Looks like Michael Schumacher going with Rubens Barrichello into the pit wall at the Hungaroring. These two are fighting tooth and nail for the last spot in the top 5. Michael Chase still trying to make the outside work. Kalin is leaning on that MX-5 as he always does, and the battle's not over. Kalin's still trying to stick it side by side, but he's got to give up eventually. Michael Chase is going to hang on to 5th.
And it was a little bit of a cool snap on the car of Chase right there, and just managed to keep it on the inside of the curve and avoid any possible crash side by side with Kalin. But the line just kind of favors if you're side by side on the exit, if you're on the outside. But it is by a slight advantage. So at the end of the day, because of this layout, look at that. You just become the hunted again, just like that. Are we going to see a bump trap? We are.
Looks like he is. Kalin and Chase locking bumpers here, and look in the background, Michael's son, Austin Bartlett Chase, joining the family train here with Mark Kalin in the middle of the sandwich. Kalin does it Jameson Sampaio style in turn one. Not going to be able to make the move on Chase, though. And just that one little move is going to bring Austin Bartlett Chase into this train. Side by side through turn one again. Bergquist and Larson. Bergquist is the next driver to displace Jason Larson. Next up is Cabana and Stanton, the two rivals tonight. Jerome Stanton trying to go for a little bit of a switchback here, but the switchback in the S's at Suzuka is a switchback about 7-fold, and it doesn't quite work out for him. He really wants to get by Ian Cabana. He knows he has the pace. He just made a little mistake to lose that spot again. Jerome Stanton wants to get back in the top 10 here. And Kevin Sandiego has pit. Kevin Sandiego and Ryan Kings, they've kicked off the pit cycle already. 22 minutes left to go in this race. They've elected to go for an early stop. I don't know if this is the move. I think they might end up in traffic after this cycle. And there goes Stanton around again.
Stanton around, and he's losing several spots. I think I see 3, 4, 5 spots lost for Stanton. Going around the final corner, what just happened? Oh, he got him. He got right in the middle of the pit confusion and just couldn't get out in time. That is unfortunate.
Mark Kalin, a little bit of a whip nene there. That's the worst thing I've ever said. Up to the inside and ahead of Michael Chase. So it's Chase and Bartlett Chase there behind Mark Kalin. But that's the most accurate way I think I've ever described Mark Kalin's driving style, because that's what it looks like. He's just whipping the rear end of that car around. He might have to change all 4 tires once this pit cycle starts for him. And he's going to go around. He's almost going to go around through the final corner. Mark Kalin is wringing the neck of this vehicle. There's still 21 minutes to go, Mark.
I wonder how much is going to be the tire heat whenever he comes into the pit lane, because whenever you pit, you get the by the time you stop, you get the tire heat. So I wonder how hot is it going to be. I think I estimate about 130, 140 maybe. But then I would be like just throwing numbers, so maybe slightly under exaggerating.
You're wondering where Sandiego and Kings have found themselves? They have found themselves 2 seconds behind a whole bunch of traffic. So they have a little bit of a gap right now. They have a little bit of clean track in front of them. but that's not going to last for very long. Meanwhile, in the lead of this race, Sampaio and Felipe Senni, they both have completely clean track in front of them because, simply, they are the leaders of this race. So I'm just trying to understand why on earth would San Diego and Kings come down early. It's not like they're going to get an undercut, I don't think. I didn't see them put on tires, but I think they actually did because they were in the box for 15 and 14 seconds respectively. So I think they might actually be trying to go for an undercut here, but is that going to work if they're in traffic this whole time?
If the other guys try to fight at least 1 or 2, 3 laps, then it gives a chance for Sampaio and Senni at the end of the day. Here he goes. Chase on the inside, managed to catch it back, but does Kalen has the room to fight it back here, Joey? I don't think he does, even if he goes through the ends aggressively.
Kalen looks a little bit less slidey through the first half of this lap. Luckily for him, hopefully those tires are screaming a little bit less, but as I say that, Chase and him both get a little bit out of shape up through the hills and not hills of Suzuka. It's hard to describe it by any other words. It's just constant undulations here in the S's. And Mark Kalen's actually going to lose a little bit of the rhythm there. He's going to be in the clutches of Austin Bartlett Chase now, and he's going to decide to come into the pits late, potentially too late. He clipped the grass. I don't know if that'll be an unsafe pit entry. I don't think it will. But that was certainly a late call from Mark Kalen.
That was very, very much of a late call. The problem now also becomes if his pit entry as well, not the running to the pit entry, but his literal pit entry speed was actually over the limit a little bit as well.
Oh dear.
Looks fast.
I think that might be Mark Kalen out of this then. We'll see if he gets a penalty here. Is he going to have to sit in his pit box for an extra 30 seconds? It looks like that may just be the case. He is still sitting there. No tires have been changed. Once we go over that 14-second marker, you know that's the case. And yes, Lorenzo is exactly right. Mark Kalen, a speeding penalty from that late call to come into the pits, which almost makes me wonder, was that a deliberate call to come in late to the pits, or was he just getting loose and he thought, you know what, I'm going in this direction, I might as well live with it and go into the pits here?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it is deliberate, but as we see Sampaio coming into the pit lane, not surprised at all to see him coming to the pit lane, given the fact that he was the aggressive out of the 4 drivers. But seeing Senni out now, how does Senni capitalize on this all by on his own? I don't think he can, to be very honest with you, Joey. It's gonna be a little bit of a hard fought, and Sampaio missed the pit box.
Oh dear, it's all falling apart for Jameson Sampaio here, but he is able to get into his pit box eventually. Is he only going to change the left side tires there? Yes, he is. I think he did only change the left sides, but also Kevin Sandiego and Ryan Kings were a full second a lap faster than Jameson Sampaio on those previous laps. And there they both go. There goes Sandiego, there goes Kings. Jameson Sampaio is going to come out in 3rd, right ahead of Eugenio Polici. But it could be 4th when Felipe Senni decides to come in. Either way, Sandiego and Kings, the early pit stops worked out for them, at least for the moment.
Yeah, but we know it's going to take about 2 or 3 laps once the Sampaio tires builds up and see the relative pace, but the separation is there, and you have Galanotto, who still hasn't pitted in the meanwhile in between Sampaio and Kings, so that could work in the benefit of the 43 and the 88, as we still see the 81 of Senni try to negotiate how late does he come to the pit lane, and if it's going to work out for him. Just real quick, if I could just place it in. Where did Bartlett Chase come from?
That's a question that we ask ourselves sometimes. I mean, frequently he's up in contention. He actually was, I believe, started on the pole here when we went to Suzuka West last season. So he's competitive at this track. He's always competitive in these MX-5s, but yeah, he just made his way forward through the field completely anonymously, joined up in that train with Michael Chase and Mark Kalen, and he is continuing his drive forward through the field. Depending on what happens with Kings and Sandiego and Sampaio, both of the Chases might find themselves in consideration for the podium here, and they're both going to extend this for as long as possible. Let's see if Austin is going to peek to the inside of his dad into turn 1. He's going to do it, and Michael's just going to let him by. Very, very kind from Michael Chase there, and I guess I can understand not wanting to fight Austin too hard. Looks like he has a little bit more pace right now.
Yeah, but now we're going to see a little bit of clearance as we see Chamberlain going into pit lane. Meanwhile, Senni still on track, about 9 seconds clear. The gap winded up a little bit, about a second or two in the last 2 laps. But the problem is, where is Kings and Sampaio, and how long is the run into the exit of the pit lane? Here comes Senni. Now question is, Joey, how fast is that pit lane from entry to finish if you do that appropriately? I would say 36, 37 seconds.
Yeah, we've been seeing everywhere from like 42 to 36 for Well, Hurlitsky didn't take tires, so I'd say about 42 seconds, but also that doesn't take into consideration the speed. But basically, what we're saying is you're just going to have to wait and see how the merger comes. Felipe pulls into the third pit stall, and we just have to wait and see. No speeding penalty for him. He got it all slowed down. We're going to see if he puts the left side tires on, just like Jamison did. He does. No surprise there. We watch Kevin Sandiego drive down the front straight. It's a quick stop for Senni. I don't think he's going to beat Sandiego here, but let's watch the merge. Senni goes full speed now, gets out from the blue cone, but still, Kevin Sandiego and Ryan Kings both jump Felipe Senni, and Jameson Sampaio has just been left in the dust. It's about a 3-second gap between him and Senni, but there's about a 1-second gap between the entire top three now.
Yeah, but now the one thing that can work in favor of Sampaio a little bit is, let's just say in the world that you find these two guys right ahead of you. Now have the back marker in front, blocking Sandiego's intentions a little bit. It's not a back marker. That is actually San Albin right in front of him. But he has to pit anyway, so it's going to take time away from the 88, from the 43, from this 81. Eventually, we'll bring Sampaio closer and closer. So that worked in the benefit of him a little bit, but don't think that is enough.
Robitaille into the pits, Saint-Aubin into the pits. The list of drivers who have yet to pit gets smaller and smaller with every single lap. It's still just Bartlett, Chase, Miller, and Putnam at the head of the field who are trying to extend this for as long as humanly possible. But with 13 minutes to go, now we've got to start legitimately thinking about this race for the win. We're not in run-in-line mode anymore. We're not in train mode anymore. We're in race for the win mode. Kings and Sandiego have been working together as teammates all race long, but eventually the two teammates are going to have to fall apart because both of them want to win here.
Yeah, but the problem is I think you have to think about championship a little bit, right? And if you're thinking about the points in this category specifically, you do have to think about maybe giving Sandiego the edge a little bit, because he's the closer one to Jamison, and he needs those points specifically in this early stages of the championship where you get these streaky tracks and you don't count the job week. So that is going to be important for the 88 to gain that consistency, and who knows, maybe contend at the end of the season.
Felipe's thinking about breaking up the Kings and Sandiego duet, but he was not able to peek to the inside into turn one. I think he's just doing a little bit of research here. Peek into the inside, peek into the outside, trying to find Ryan Kings' weaknesses throughout the track. But I don't think he's thinking 100% about making this move right now. We've seen a little bit of backing up from Felipe, a little bit of under aggression, if I had to say, and it's just a calculated drive from him, at least it seems.
Place it mildly, and I said I think that situation for Sandiego is better, but it looks like I just saw King's situation slightly better, so it's going to be a tricky one. Let's see what Senni's going to do, because I don't think he's going to bump draft enough. He might give it a little bit of a bump, set himself up on the outside, try to get that run, use the 88 a little bit of a slingshot, and here we go.
Forces Kings to the inside a little bit, forces him to take a narrower entry into turn one, but again, he has to back out of it, and I think he might be thinking about keeping Kings in contact with Sandiego. He doesn't want to lose Sandiego and let him drive off into the sunset. He wants all three of them to be in contention for the win, but that was close again. We're starting to see Ryan King struggle just a little bit. I think he's starting to feel the pressure. He's got to make sure he doesn't lose touch with his teammate fighting for second here.
Yeah, but you can see him getting very defensive into turn number 3 and 4 right there, nearly blocking the inside line out of Sandy, as we see Bartlett chasing Chase going to the pit lane. So the last guys within the running going for their pit stops. Now we're going to see where they come out at the end of the day. And here we go, Sandy trying to get that run one more time and set up the overtake. Meanwhile, Sampaio coming closer and closer.
Every single time these two go side by side, it just helps Jamison that little bit more. Kings knows he's clear of Senni this time, though. Pulls over to the left side of the track, and he's able to take turn one as he likes this time. and that's clearly worked out for him. He closed the gap back down to San Diego very, very quickly there. All three drivers in the top three, very much still in contention here, and if I had to predict, I would say Jameson Sampaio will likely be the fourth car in contention in a few laps' time. He is just bringing this gap down every single lap, every single corner that these three continue to fight. Jameson is just closing and closing and closing. Also, Austin Bartlett Chase and Michael Chase have come out 5th and 6th after their pit stops. It's been a great pit cycle for them, and they will both be fighting for the last spot in the top 5. Jason Larson has not had a quiet day tonight. He has been fighting with just about every single driver on the track, and the next driver who's going to dispatch of him is Ian Cabana, who's up into 13th.
And we have to think about also how many guys he fought throughout this race. He was in a train of like 7 cars, then it went down to 5, then it went down to 4. So he's basically been fighting everything and everyone around this track, and now the first time you actually see 2 cars around, it's a little bit more interesting than usual. Just looking here. Uh-oh. Back to you.
Uh-oh, indeed. I was worried about that. I'm sure Kevin San Diego was happy to see them going side by side, but Senny backs out of it again. Lets Ryan Kings just stay in contact with Kevin San Diego, but eventually I think his patience is going to run out, and he's going to have to completely attempt this move into turn 1. He goes for a little bit of an unintentional switchback, I think, there through the final S. Ended up setting that up pretty well, and through the final corner, Kings a much, much better run. But Senny's in the draft again. Kings is a little bit further back than San Diego this time. He's going to get less of a draft. He's going to have less straight line speed. But Felipe again is just closing very, very slowly. He's going to have to go to the outside with a huge defense from Kings again. Let's see if Kings makes a mistake into turn 1. Can Senny finally get by? The answer is no. Senny tries to go for a switchback, peeks to the inside, but Kings once again closes it off.
Already blocking the lane transition on turn number 1 and 2 from Senny right there. As a counterpart, losing a little bit of ground to San Diego is Ryan, and you can see Felipe starting to get slightly more aggressive than usual. He knows time is running out. He got about 9 laps or something like that, 8-9 laps of sorts still to run in this race, and you're trying to find those routes, you're trying to find those spaces to work with, and you know that San Diego is not far, and you can actually continue to make that one overtake. You need just that one overtake and look at the line.
Big mistake for Kings, and Senny gets into the back of him. Did Kings get into the Armco on the inside with that tap? We didn't see. Is there any damage? I think there might be. Kings pulls over to the right side of the track. He's going, and yes, there is. There's the answer. Heavy, heavy damage to Ryan Kings' car, and that is going to be his fight for the win over. Just a little mistake out of the final corner. Senny gets into the back of him and punts him into the inside Armco. Ryan Kings' fight for the win is over. Let's see what happened through the final corner, Lorenzo.
Yeah, just going way too wide, and when he came back on track, looks like Senny was trying to go for the outside move, or trying to go for a move that avoided him at the end of the day, then just putting him into the Armco barrier. No, Kings has to go into the pit lane. Yeah, he has to go back into the pit lane. There was so much damage on that suspension. You even see that thing wobbling up and down as he was going to turn number 1. That is very unfortunate.
Yeah, it looked like he was kind of driving a tricycle down the front straight there, so a bad day for Dark Horse Esports. Kelly Greenhoe, his wheelbase failed, couldn't even make the grid. Ryan Kings gets taken out in the fight for the win, but luckily, if this is any solace, the team's championship leaders are still currently leading the race. Kevin San Diego is still their last bullet. He can still win this race for them. But look at this Hornet's Nest. Well, not anymore. Andrew Sharp is going to get through there. Buddy Chamberlain ends up off the road. His first race this season, does a little bit of rallycross, and he'll now rejoin to the back of this train.
Not just a rallycross, but a synchronized rallycross, as both cars would actually basically go in the same drift angle on the outside of the part of the corner, but still managed to come back and track in one piece. That's what we want to see.
Kings' mistake has really separated the fight for the lead now. Kevin San Diego has a 1.9 second gap over Senny and Sampaio, who both now have to fight for second here. Are they going to be able to work together to close down that gap? You can see up ahead, San Diego's in a little bit of traffic. I think he has just dispatched of whatever traffic was there. These two don't have a lot of time to bring down a 2-second gap. San Diego seems pretty comfortable right now. The 72 is going to pull out of the way and let Kevin get through turn 1 cleanly. And the hits keep on coming at the back of the field. Ian Cabana is the next driver to spin, and he's got heavy damage on the front of that car.
Yeah, and that damage doesn't look healthy in the car of Cabana right there. Let's look at the replay. It looks like it is all on his own. Yeah, just clipped too much grass and just couldn't come back in time and hit the tire barrier race first, but it kind of hit the border, so that adds up to the impact even more.
Who put that wall there? Who put that wall there? That's what Ian Cabana's going to be asking. He would have been fine if that darn safe wall wasn't there. Sampaio and Senni here up at the head of the, or almost at the head of the field, rather, trying to chase down the head of the field. Kevin Sandiego, he's always a little bit slow through that final corner. It always worries me just a little bit, but he recovers it through the second half. Now Senni trying to get by the lap car, who's not going to leave him any room at all. Senni was trying to get to the outside, and the 72 of Robert Gallinotto says, you know what, you're gonna have to get by me the hard way. You're not getting around out there. Both Senni and Sampaio have to get back in line. They're not gonna be able to make the move into turn one. Gallinotto is refusing to get out of the way here.
Yeah, I don't know what happened over there. It looks like a little bit of miscommunication. There you go. Yeah, there was full miscommunication between Senni and Senpai and Gallinotto right there. As Senni probably wanted to go the faster line on the outside, and Gallinotto just kind of confused. As we see the 6 of Miller making the move over Hurlitske and going to P8, and Miller just having a really solid race today.
Yeah, one of the drivers we've talked about the least, and I think that's usually a good sign when we talk about you the least, because that means you haven't been getting in any sort of trouble, and it's been a completely clean day for Nathan Miller. I think 8th is exactly where he started, so he's had a completely good and standard day. Josh Kimball is the next lap car ahead of Kevin Sandiego, and look at this Hornets nest. Mark Kalin and Kimball, this is actually for position. This is for 19th place. These two have no reason to let Kevin Sandiego by. They're both fighting for their own positions, but something tells me they probably will. Kalen's going to lose that spot almost. He's going to recover incredibly after throwing it off the track. He's going to do a little bit of a slide job on Josh Kimball. Kevin Sandiego, who is around the outside of Kimball. This is dicey stuff, but he's doing pretty well here, keeping a cool head. And he knows that Senni and Sampaio are going to have to get by these guys too. So as quick as he can get by them, hopefully the next two get held up a little bit more. Kalen throws it off the road to help him just a little bit. Kimball's going to make the move around the outside of Kalen, and Sandiego is clean up into the lead once more, or at least clean of lap traffic behind.
Yeah, but the problem is now you see Senni and Sampaio not far behind, and you can see just the car to the outside are losing a little bit of traction, so Kalen has to dive down a little bit back, and you got the gap that was about 2 seconds down, straightened out to 1.2. So if you're Sandiego, you have about 3 laps to go. What do you do?
Felipe Senni got a lot of help there on the front straight. Sampaio's getting held up a little bit. He wasn't able to navigate quite as swiftly there, but Senni got a draft from Josh Kimball. Then Kimball let off to let him by into turn one. Now he's actually going to let Mark Kalin by for position. This is a crazy battle for 19th, and now that the leaders have gone by, they can fight as hard as they want. It doesn't really matter for the complexion of the race, but Sandiego was able to get through cleanly eventually. Senni objectively had a better run through lap traffic, though. At the line, it's going to be 3 laps to go. Felipe Senni is within 1 second, within 0.8 of a second onto the front straight. Can he close this gap on pace? Has he been a faster driver on pace for the course of this race? Let's see the lap times as they cross the line. Last lap, a 58.7 for Sandiego, but a 58.5 for Senni. This race isn't over.
No, definitely not out of the cars just yet, and you're going to see Senni be more aggressive going to the lines and try to cut down the deficit as quickly as he can with the time he has in his hand. You can see from 0.9 of a second to 0.7 of a second. Now the key is maintain that consistently to sector 1 and 2, and if you can do that cleanly going to sector number 3, which is the transition into the final corner, then you're pretty much set for a really good draft run, and then everything engages once again.
Jason Larson not done fighting, and somehow he was in 14th a couple laps ago, and now he's back in the top 10 after getting by Andrew Finaro. I think a few drivers ahead of him got into a little bit of trouble, so he's picked up their spots. Polici, we didn't see him get into trouble, but he unfortunately is out of this race, and we did see Ian Cabana end up in the wall. So that is how Jason Larson's advanced his way forward just a little bit, and he'll get a top 10 for all of his efforts here. And Saint-Aubin spins. I think he might have got a little bit of help from Pete Thomas there. There might have been more front to rear end contact there, and Matthew Saint-Aubin, another driver who's had a tough day. He literally had a car land on him earlier. He gets turned around at turn 1.
Ooh,
And Michael Chase is down pit road. I don't think, did he put enough fuel in the car, or has he reached the 13x instant limit? I think it's going to be the latter. I think Michael Chase might have thrown it off track a little bit too many times, and he's going to have to do a drive-through here and fall out of a fantastic top 5 run. He is not stopping his pit stall, so I think that is exactly what happened. But here comes Kevin Sandiego. He's going to take the white flag here. Austin Bartlett Chase has also made a mistake from the top 4. Michael Chase has pulled into his pit stall as well, so I don't know what's going on with those two drivers. They might have run out of fuel, but with 6 seconds on the clock, Kevin Sandiego takes the white flag. He's got a full second back to Felipe Seni, and it should be a fairly straightforward lap to the finish. And I think Austin Bartlett Chase is out of fuel.
Yeah, it does look like it. The car is very slow, and it now has to go to the steepest part of the track and try to navigate that back to the pit lane.
And Michael Chase was out of fuel as well. He sits in his box to put in the fuel he needs to complete just one more lap here. But no worries for Kevin Sandiego up front as he navigates through the S's for the final time. Austin Bartlett Chase is going to take the white flag. He will get to finish this race, but Kevin Sandiego started on pole. He has been completely dominant, and he has shown up Jamison Sampaio for the first time of anyone in this MX-5 Cup Series this season through the final corner. Where in the world is Kevin Sandiego? Well, he is in victory lane at Suzuka. Dark Horse Esports and Kevin Sandiego win in the MX-5 Cup Series. And almost a photo finish to the line between Seni and Sampaio, but Felipe Seni brings it home in second. Jamison Sampaio, who has been so dominant this season, he's going to have to settle for a measly third, but somehow I don't think he'll be too unhappy for a 100% podium streak. David Van Roy picks up the pieces in fourth. Kevin Berquist is going to be fifth. Andrew Vanaro is out of fuel as well. So Austin Bartlett Chase, Michael Chase, Andrew Vanaro, a lot of drivers have clearly miscalculated their fuel here in these last runs.
Yeah, I wonder who are the engineers of some of those drivers that might get a little bit of, there will be some budget cuts coming in the next few weeks.
Derek Putnam ends up with a top 10 at the end of all this. Jason Larson, who was fighting for 14th, has ended up finishing 7th in this race. It has just been almost a race of attrition in these final couple laps, but it's been a tale of survival for a lot of drivers, and Kevin Sandiego up front just absolutely dominant tonight. He was under pressure from his teammate Ryan Kings, but that went by the wayside, and Seni and Sampaio could not fight back. Kevin Sandiego victorious over Felipe Seni, over Jamison Sampaio. David Van Roy and Kevin Berquist brought it home 4th and 5th, and then Miller, Larson, Robitaille, and Putnam and Herlitzky rounded out the top 10. After all, bringing it home, last cars on the lead lap, Andrew Sharp had one spin. Austin Bartlett Chase, I believe, is still out on track trying to bring it to the line with no fuel in the car. And Andrew Vanaro, Buddy Chamberlain, and Pete Thomas were the last drivers on the lead lap. St. Aubin, Mark Kalin, Josh Kimball, Robert Gallinotto, and Michael Chase all went one lap down, as did Ian Cabana. And then we get to the used car lot of the heavily damaged cars. Eugenio Polici, Ryan Kings in his fight for victory, William Lee, Patrick Cowgill, Jerome Stanton, and of course, astronaut Frank Klein and Christian Lesiak round out 28 cars in the field tonight. But the first driver we get to talk to, first place in the race, Kevin Sandiego, you just got your first PRL win.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was awesome, really fun racing tonight. Definitely really short track. Had to really try hard to stay ahead. Not a lot of opportunity here to pass, so we had to kind of stick together.
So have you ever actually driven this layout before this came up on the MX-5 calendar? Had you ever driven this east layout of Suzuka?
No, I hadn't. I mentioned it last week. You know, definitely the full track. I've run that a whole bunch of times, but this was really short. I wasn't expecting that. So, but got a chance to run one public lobby race this week, so that was fun to get ready for tonight.
I should have remembered you saying that last week, because I think I was the one interviewing you. But anyway, you've got the win down. Of course, you know, Watkins Glen, that was a tough race with the lack of practice, but you were on the podium last week. You get the win done at Suzuka this week. Are you starting to think about challenging Jamison for the rest of the season?
Oh, for sure. You know, we'll give it a good run. You know, it's definitely, we still have a bunch of races to go, and hopefully we can get a couple of other good team finishes done. Tonight didn't work out. You know, Kelly had some hardware problems with his wheel, and then Ryan basically, I think, got loose on the first last corner before the start finish and ate the wall. So unfortunately, he dropped out a little bit early.
Well, we congratulate you once more on your win this week, and I guess we'll see you on Thursday night first for more F3 chances. Yeah,
absolutely. And if William Lee's out there, really apologize for tapping you in the S's there, man. For some reason, all of a sudden you were a bit slower, and then I hit your, I guess, left rear corner, and you kind of went into the wall. So really sorry about that, man. Didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, hopefully William Lee is watching. And as always, good sportsmanship from drivers in the Precision Racing League. Kevin Sandiego, your victor tonight. Let's drag up our second placed finisher, Felipe Seni. And Lorenzo, I guess it's up to you to decide what you're going to talk to with Felipe about.
That's going to be the funny part because we're Brazilian. So we're going to do this in English, Felipe. So bear with me. So congratulations on P2. It's been a long time coming, man. So how does it feel to get P2 in a hard-fought battle like this?
Hello, Lorenzo. Tudo bem?
Tudo bem.
It feels great. I've been practicing a lot the last week. This is the first time that I'm racing in this track, so had to learn a lot of the tiny tricks of those S's, right? So it feels great to be second place. I'd like to apologize to Ryan Kings. Unfortunately, we had a small contact and he lost the car, so sorry, Ryan. I was trying to overtake him. Yeah, you know, race things, right? So it feels great. Super excited to be a part of this league alongside Jameson. And yes, that's it. Let's start to practice for next week's race. Thank you.
And I was going to ask you that specifically, Felipe, because you go from a track that is very truncated to a track that is going to be a little bit more forgiving for you to make a good run. What are the thoughts in terms of the schedule? Which track do you think feels you better, going from Suzuka to Donington? Do you think it's a better fit for you in terms of as a driver?
You know, this championship it's super challenging for me because I'm used to race on the Brazilian leagues, right? Like RFP. Yes, and we race on the basic package of tracks, right? So I never raced on Donington Park, so I'll have to learn all the stuff from right now to try to get a good result. So yeah, this league has been a great challenge for me to expand my knowledge on tracks.
And that's good to know, Felipe. Well, take a break, man, and enjoy the remainder of your day. And congratulations once more.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, Felipe Seni, and hopefully, I wish Jameson Sampaio would be here. We could have got the full podium, but unfortunately, Jameson, I'm sure, still hanging out there. Maybe we'll get to talk to him next week when he's back to his winning ways. But crazy race, Lorenzo, and next week it might just get even crazier. A lot of drivers, Felipe included, gonna have to practice. Donington Park coming up next week. Talked about undulations in the S's here. How about we multiply that by 5, even faster, even more undulations. Couple of tight hairpins for good measure. I think that's going to be a great race for the MX-5.
It's going to be a great race, and it's a complete different layout from what we see in here at Suzuka. Sure, you have the elevation changes and everything, but you have so many tricky corners. Specifically, that first sector for the MX-5 just can be the worst. You know, especially going side by side. It's going to be nerve-wracking for us to take a look at, but it should provide us some really great action next week.
And we will have more action tonight. The action is not over on Monday night. We've got the GT4 Fixed Series coming up here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. But it is not the full Barcelona layout that we're used to in F1 or even one of the alternate layouts that we're used to in MotoGP and the like. No, we are at the National Circuit of Barcelona this week. Basically, cut off the first sector, put a little hairpin U-turn sort of thing in the place of it, and that's Barcelona National for you.
Yeah. A little bit of a trivia. This is actually my first time. This is the fun stuff. I've been commentating Barcelona races for quite a while now here at RaceSpot. This is the first time I'm actually commentating the national layout. We're seeing the national layout in RaceSpotTV.
I don't know. Maybe will that be a good sign or a bad sign for the race? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We ran this for the MX-5s last season, and it was a pretty good race. So I don't know. Maybe Lorenzo's first time at Barcelona National. A first race at track is always good. So hopefully that bodes well.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. It's kind of like it's a complete different beast of sorts in terms of setups in comparison to the actual full scope of the GP or moto layout.
And this is round 3 of the season, as it is on the MX-5 Cup Series, because both Monday nights actually align. Monday night actually aligns with the rest of the series this week. I'm going to end that anecdote right now. Road Atlanta's coming up next week. I can say that with my words good. And then, of course, the one new track, Oschersleben coming up. Rudskogen, I believe, is on the official schedule on iRacing, but it's just been cut off by the 10-week schedule the PRL does. And then some old classics at Sebring, at the Nürburgring, at Mid-Ohio, at Road America. And we had an incredible race here at Sandown last season, so I'm very, very excited to go back there. But it's a lot of tracks that are very, very good for GT4 cars. I keep repeating myself, but GT4 cars tend to put on pretty good races just about everywhere. In the championship, it's last week's not winner. It's the Max Verstappen spin to third, Michael Diaz, who still leads the championship. Francis Castillo Romero only 4 points behind him, though. Matias Arangua is in third, and Gabriel Gignac is fourth. Matthew Miles, Johnny Luna, Justin Ream, Sean Mulholland, and Kyle Kammer are the top 9. And then Adam Brockway, last week's winner, only in 10th in the championship because he made it about 2 corners at Okayama the week before and then won the week after from zero to hero, and I'm sure he'll be a championship contender working his way up for the rest of the season. Precision Racing Esports Pro with Michael Diaz and Francis Castillo Romero. They're 1 and 2 in the championship. Make that 1 in the team's championship, no surprise. But YS Motorsports will be fighting back with Adam Brockway and the gang. Advan Racing is 3rd, and then Precision Racing Esports Academy is 4th. Britannia iSports is 5th, and then our favorite team in the world, but we're not biased at all, Monkey Butt Rides MRT are tied with SRT Esport for 6th. Then HPDS Academy, that's Hardpoint by Delta Sport, and then Can-Am Racing and Ride and Shotgun Motorsports round out the top 10 in the GT4 fixed team standings. Qualifying currently underway here at Barcelona, and it's a driver who's always competitive at the top of the timesheets right now. Justin Ream in his Porsche is on pole. He's going to look for his first PRL win tonight.
And he's kind of been knocking on the door to try to get actually a really good result in here. So it's going to be an interesting race nevertheless, but I just have one bone to pick. All right, let's see if you might agree with me, Joey. If we're running on this national layout, do you really want to see the GP layout embedded within the national layout? I'd rather run the moto.
I can't make a decision because the national layout is interesting and it makes, I guess, for a good passing zone because it's a heavier braking zone into turn 1. But
yeah.
It's a pretty weird layout, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, it's a weird layout. Just given the fact that you kind of cut the straight in half. But more importantly, you still have the GP, or it would be the 3rd sector, where you're gonna go right instead of you going straight and all the way down to the straight line. You turn over here to the right and go into the F1 layout. I don't like that. If you're gonna have the national layout, at least use the motor layout. That's my only bone to pick about this track. Other than that, Barcelona can be cool. For GT racing like this.
Are you listening, iRacing? Listen to Lorenzo. Next season's GT4 calendar. Give us the moto layout of the Barcelona National Circuit. I'll co-endorse that. I mean, the chicane, does it put on good racing? I guess it kind of forces people into mistakes, but I hate driving the Barcelona chicane more than I think I hate driving just about any corner. So I fully endorse erasing it from existence.
Fair. All right, fair game. Especially given the fact that we do that. Imagine if we did try to do that in Indy cars or in the F3s.
I mean, that would suit me. Anything that's less effort, anything where I can just go high speed and flick the car in. I don't even have to think about the brakes or anything like that. Send that my way. But anyway, Michael Diaz rounds the final corner with his teammate in tow. 1:14.0 was Michael's previous best lap. He's not going to improve on that. Still about 6/10 off in this open qualifying session in the GT4s. This was actually put up to a poll this week. Some drivers were kind of concerned about open qualifying in the GT4s, especially about in a short track like this. They wanted to go to closed qualifying. They wanted everybody to run their own runs. That was shot down. Open qualifying stays, and we get a little bit more action and a little bit of draft talk in the qualifying sessions now instead. Patrick Bachelard not going to set a lap time on that lap. He is going to set on his actual time now, and he is on the clock in the number 100.
As we see him going through turn number 1 and 2 specifically, but just getting a little bit caught off on the transition of the hairpin, and again on the end of the first sector, entering the second sector, going to the La Caja right now. So it's a little bit of a tricky car for you to navigate. I don't know what happened to the Aston Martin for you to become tail happy like that, but nevertheless, still within contention, still within the top 4. We're still within the front two first rows.
That's going to be a pretty interesting front row. If it stays like it does, Reem and Diaz, they got into each other at Daytona last week trying to fight for the win with Adam Brockway. They took each other out. Diaz was able to finish the race. I think Justin Reem had heavier damage. If he did finish, it was outside of the top 10. They got pretty mad at each other afterwards. They start in the front row together. That could be a pretty interesting start between them two.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And let's take the fact that this is actually a very, very tricky corner. So this is a right-hander. So this is not like Daytona open hairpin that you got so many lines to try to stick through. But nevertheless, in here, it's kind of like a very pinched-in hairpin. You cannot go side by side because once you go out side by side, you have a corner just right after. So they're gonna have to find a way to negotiate their survival for the first few laps.
Marvin Frias here in one of the few McLarens in the field. Still more McLarens than last season. So through the final corner comes Marvin, currently 5th, the highest McLaren to the line. Not going to improve. This has been an out lap. You saw him just crawling through those final couple of corners of the track. But this should be a legit lap for Marvin if he doesn't get held up by the car coming out of the pits there. You also saw Fernando Ayaquez jumping up into 9th place there, displacing Matias Arangua and making up that row 5 a little bit further back. But let's ride on board with Marvin Frias. Let's experience the Barcelona National layout from this McLaren GT4, and let's see if he can improve it all with a lap car in front of him, or a car coming out of the pits in front of him, I should say. Aston Martin gets out of the way very, very kindly. Going to let Marvin go on his way, completely on his lonesome. And get ready, the most awkward sector in all of motorsports, or at least one of the most awkward sectors in all of motorsports. Huge sausage curbs, and Marvin's going to navigate through the last couple corners. Let's see if he can beat a 1:14.3. He only needs 2/10 to catch Adam Brockway. See if he's got it through the final corner. Not quite. Still about half a second off. That's been kind of consistent for these last couple laps. I feel like we've got it's either got to be a hotter track or something, because everybody seems to be half a second slower than their fastest lap times. And as I say that, there goes Michael Diaz going how much slower? Half a second than his best lap time. Again.
Could be aligned with the weather, yeah, of course. But we have to also take into effect how many laps they've done within the stint of their car. So the GT4 first few laps there, and usually the kind of like whenever you're building up the heat, it can be quicker, as the Diaz just takes a little bit of an incursion into the off part of the circuit, into the transition of turn number 2 and 3 at TV3. So getting that off track. But the thing is, man, this is the tricky thing, right? You're going to a track that is supposed to be medium high downforce, and you're still within that, but you have more of an abrupt elevation change going to turn number 1 and then number 2, where you going uphill, then it kind of like flattens out, then you go slightly downhill, and then you go uphill again. So it puts suspension under so much. I'm trying to find a better word here. I know the word is escaping English. Such a complicated language. Stress. There you go.
Say the Portuguese word for it instead.
Stress.
Oh, I didn't realize that was actually the word you were looking for. Oh man, it's getting all confused. I shouldn't be getting flustered. It's 9:30 here. It's what, like 3:30 for you right now, Lorenzo?
Close 1 hour earlier. 2:30, 2:40.
That's rookie stuff. Then you still got another good hour left in the night. You gotta stick with us for the rest of the racing here. Patrick Bachelard to the line again. 0.3 of a second slower. Nobody's able to improve. Patrick Bachelard not able to improve. Diaz not able to improve. It's just been a wall of lap time that nobody's been able to break down.
It's tricky as we see Bachelard now going to TV3. Looks like a clean line, a little bit less aggressive comparison to his last few laps. I think the one you really want to make it is not this one, but La Caja right after, because that hairpin is kind of like so tricky for you to go in, finding the right braking point, going to the apex, carry the speed, try to avoid clipping the curb on the inside, not too much curb on the sausage, right there on the yellow sausage, and then just, navigating through sector 2 and 3 and getting that really good lap. Don't think this might beat his 14.1, but it might be close.
Somebody's found lap time on track. Francis Castillo-Romero found a little bit to hop up into 5th, but here we go. Bachelard, checker flag is out, and he thinks he's not going to improve. Talk about an anticlimax.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for getting our hopes up there. Let's see if anybody else is on track. Francis Castillo-Romero, he actually set that lap time to put it up in 5th, and he set it just in time because he's going to get one more lap around. So if he was able to find time, can he find even more time on the second lap? Can Michael Diaz give him a little bit of draft ahead? Could we see Francis Castillo-Romero advance onto the second row? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, and hopefully he doesn't pull into the pits through the final corner like Bachelard did.
Yeah, and you also have the car in front of him right there, I think, kind of giving it a little bit of tow. So just going to the final corners. Is he going to board? Doesn't look like it. His line is pretty much clean.
Big fan of those bright green wheels on Francis's car, and he's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. He knows he's not gonna improve. Francis brings it down. Michael brings it down. I think the last two drivers on track are Matthew Miles and Anthony Dring, and both of them are in the depths of the top 20, so they probably won't be improving on this lap, but set that stage for you. Justin Ream and Michael Diaz got into each other last week at Daytona, and they're going to start in the front row together.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a repeat of what we saw in Daytona, but the thing is, now you don't have that turn number 1, which invites a little bit of drama in Daytona. You still have drama because it is more pinched in, but nevertheless, that first lap is going to be either a straightforward carnage or it's going to be negotiated overtakes and things after everything calms down at the end of lap 1.
And Diaz and Ream are both the utmost of professionals, so I can't imagine there's going to be anything too dastardly into turn 1, but it's still going to be exciting. Look at that front row. Justin Ream and Michael Diaz alongside each other. Then Patrick Bachelard and Adam Brockway make it a pair of Aston Martins on row 2, and then Francis Castillo-Romero and Marvin Frias are 5th and 6th. Jean-Marc Tremblay, Fernando Ayaquez, Eric Palacio, and Matias Arangua round out the top 10. Chase Brown, who I believe is here for the first time this season, is 11th alongside Luis Grulon. And then Frankie Arvello and Artie Mercedes, of course, in a Mercedes, are 13th and 14th. Brett Pancari and Dean Giroux, 15th and 16th. Johnny Luna and Luis Barazza, 17th and 18th. Sean Mulholland, Matthew Miles, Drew Lidke, Vincent Bissonette, Liam Park, and David Slee are the top 24. Anthony Dring, Brian Hoskins, Austin Harris, Stephen Hassett, and Corey Clark are the top 29. Also, William Brennan, not to be confused with the former Supreme Court Justice, and Stacey Hunter will also be at the back of the field after not setting qualifying times. 31 cars here at Barcelona National for 40 minutes of GT4 racing. I honestly have no idea how this race is going to go. Even at tracks like this where passing seems like it's going to be difficult, these guys have put on great races in the past, so I'm very much looking forward to this rolling start here in just a few moments' time. The clock is ticking down here, but I'm going to keep hyping up this turn 1 between Ream and Diaz. It's going to be critical for track position, Lorenzo. Do you want to be the guy on the inside, or do you want to be the guy on the outside trying to force the guy into a mistake in front of you?
Ooh, great question. I want to be the third guy behind.
Patrick Batchelor, or maybe even Adam Brockway behind. You saw him, pick up the pieces. He was leading the train at Daytona, but he was able to pick up the pieces, didn't get involved in any accidents, and that's why he won. Also, Marvin Frias has not made the grid, I don't think, unless my timing is behind. Yeah, he's not there.
You're not.
So no, Marvin Frias, he's in the session, but he's going to have to start from the pits. So I don't know if he just missed the time. Maybe he was going for a bathroom break, but Marvin Frias, if he does start this race, will be starting it from the pits, unfortunately, instead of the top 5.
Oh, here's playing tactics. He's starting intentionally for the pit lane. See everybody die on turn 1, and then the turns right after that. Pick up the scraps and go from P27, I think, P31 all the way back into P1.
I hope Marvin can do that. I'm personally endorsing that. Looks like a little bit of a messy pace lap in the background, but everybody does navigate through the final chicane. Green flag is out of Barcelona, and it's a very, very early start for Justin Ream. Michael Diaz trying to get into the draft, but he elects to not follow him. He's not going to follow the Justin Ream snake. It's going to be 1 by 1 into turn 2. Turn 1 for the first 2, and then Bachelard and Brockway side by side for third. And there's a huge accident. That's not even coming to the green. That's before the green through the final corner for Artie Mercedes and Frankie Arvello. That actually was at turn 1. That was a little bit of an optical illusion, but still early accidents for 2 drivers at the back of the field. And the 2 up front streaking away just a little bit while the 2 Aston Martins fight for third.
Yeah, but not a surprise for him to try to get that early start once the car went into the pit lane, just launch himself and catch Diaz by surprise. Brought Brockway a little bit closer, trying to negotiate an overtake in turn number 1, but just could not capitalize in it. But look at Diaz's second sector pace and going closer and closer towards Ream over here. So this is going to be an interesting race for Ream to negotiate where the BMW looks strongest.
BMW not trampolining over the curbs as much as it looked like it did last season, but Michael Diaz very, very close to the back of Justin as we cross the line to end lap number 1. I think that might be the first lap Justin Ream has actually led in this series. He's been in contention for wins so many times. He's been in the fight for the podium for second, but he's going to lead the field down into turn 1 here once more. Diaz not quite close enough to think about a move, but somehow I don't think the pressure's going to be going anywhere. We race side by side a little bit deeper in the field. Matthew Miles, I believe, has lost a spot to Dean Giroux. And it's just a sea of Aston Martins in the middle of the field as we watch Luis Barazza trying to get through Johnny Luna in that Mercedes.
Yeah, and now the tricky thing is how do you negotiate overtakes in here, right? You only have, I think, 2, maybe 3 overtaking opportunities in here, but even then in these GT4s you have to come in, look on the inside, look at Mulholland, try to go for the overtake, but just cannot go for it because the hairpins, they have such a wide angle for you to negotiate in terms of track width, so it's tricky for you to try to do something about it.
A little bit of a wiggle from the Aston Martin there, but Mulholland's going to have to back out of that. And the Marvin Frias update, he did start from the pits, so that was not him missing this race. That was just, I don't know, maybe if he drives up into the top 5, we'll have to ask him at the end of the race. But Frias started 31st in the pits, up to 29th after those 2 accidents on lap 1, and he is going to attempt to drive his way forward through the field, which I'm sure he didn't want to do after qualifying 5th. But Brett Pancari is also still under attack here. I thought Johnny Luna was going to be under attack from Luis Barazza, but he's actually extended that gap just a little bit, and Brett Pancari in the 35 now has Johnny Luna to worry about behind him.
As we see the setup here for Brett Pancari going to VR and some questionable shirts from the New York Rangers right behind. Well, I'm a Rangers fan because of Gracie, but nevertheless, let's go back into the track action and try to do his best to try to defend against Luna. But Luna, I think he's playing patient right here, just trying to find the right opening to make that overtake.
Hard to find a spot to overtake through the final sector, but Johnny Luna's getting aggressive here. He's all over the back of Pancari through the final couple of chicanes for the 2nd or 3rd time in this race. I've already lost track. Stuff's been flown by so quickly. But Brett Pancari looks to be in control of this. Doesn't clip the huge curb on the outside through the final corner. The Porsche looks pretty planted. Let's see the difference between the 2 straight line speeds here. Johnny Luna and Brett Pancari down the front straight. They're going to stay exactly as they were one lap before. Luna not quite strong enough through that last second to make a move.
No, but also as a counterpart, Barraza not even close as well, but he might actually get a touch of Mulholland. Mulholland just not far behind, trying to look for that opening as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to say the biggest action around the track would be this mid pack. You know, going from, I would say, P7 all the way back into P maybe 22 or something like that. Look at that.
Here comes Johnny Luna to the inside of Brett Pancari. Under braking, it's going to be a very, very easy move for Johnny Luna. Gets the Mercedes slowed down, and I don't think Brett Pancari was interested in fighting that especially hard. Luna was getting aggressive, clearly had the pace advantage there, and now Johnny Luna is up into 13th. It's now a 3-second gap to make up to Matthew Miles up ahead. Got a spin in the background. David Slee right ahead of Marvin Frias's drive forward. Was there any contact? I have to imagine there might have been with the location of that car, but let's see what happened to David Slee. Was there contact? Yep, there certainly was. The 26 of Fernando Ayaquez turned Slee around.
Yeah, but just looking at that angle, doesn't look like it was intentional. A little bit more of a mistake. Meanwhile, Luna making a move upon again upon Kari or something like that, just trying to solidify the move in his position, and Mulholland dropped a few spots back.
Mulholland and Barazza side by side up the hill at Barcelona. Mulholland trying to keep it side by side, but that door closed. Barazza lucky to not get turned there, but these two have been fighting very, very hard for 15th here. Cones are all over the road. I think that might have been caused by Dean Giroux up the road. He's been bullying our cones. To the inside goes Mulholland, trying to scare Barazza into a mistake maybe, but he's not able to make that move. He's later on the brakes, but that door was very, very shut.
Yeah, kind of park it on the apex, but just trying to follow through the normal line. Broad also, Anthony Ding and Joe Lidke, so it's instead of a 2-car scrap, it becomes immediately a 4-car scrap. So any mistakes done, it might pay off for the drivers behind, and that's something you really don't want to do this early on in the race.
Lots of battles on track have very much stagnated. The battle for the lead is still separated by about 7/8 tenths of a second. Adam Brockway still hanging with him on the podium, but again, about 7 tenths of a second behind. All the action is here in the midfield as everybody tries to sort everything out. Here we ride on board with Drew Lidke now. Drew is currently in 18th, and Anthony Dring in that 32 up ahead. Vincent Bissonnette behind as well. Little bit of target fixation, a little bit understeer there for Drew Lidke, and he is going to now fall into the clutches of the aforementioned Vincent Bissonnette. Or he might, if he hasn't been able to recover it quickly enough. He is able to recover, and Vincent's got more pressing things to worry about because he's got Liam Park behind him.
Not only that, but I also saw on our table that Romero, I think, just made a move on Blanchard. Let's look on the replay right here. What happened to the BMW? Just full dive down on the inside door action. Yeah, just shoving that number 100 from Advent Racing outside of the track, but solid move nevertheless. Was a little bit fiendish, but it was clean.
We saw last week at the International Horseshoe, like every single lap. Oh dear, Francis Castillo Romero was always later on the brakes, but Artie Mercedes is the one getting into trouble right now. Got forced to the outside a little bit by Luis Grulon, I think. He recovers, but he had to slam on the brakes there to make sure he didn't run off the track. Former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan for hard point by Delta Sport, getting by one of the McLarens, and now next up on his list is the 194. Under braking, Luis Grulon is damaged, so he should be an easy move, but everybody checks up. There's a huge check of the 47 or the 25 rather. Corey Clark gets into the back, and we're side by side further ahead. Eric Palacio on Jean-Marc Tremblay. A little bit of teammate moves there, but I don't think they intended Chase Brown to get by Tremblay as well.
No, not at all. I think Brown just played a cheeky move and took a little bit of an opportunistic move and made it work at the end of the day. Look now at Orvello and Miles not far behind, trying to take advantage of Tremblay's possible issues around the track, because it doesn't look like the lines for Tremblay are very solid in comparison to the other drivers, but he's doing his best to keep up at the moment.
Frankie Arvello for Precision Racing Esports on the attack here. Of course, we would be remiss not to mention that Jerome Bertiome, unfortunately, is not in the field tonight. He is at home, and his entire family, including himself, are all sick. So Jerome, unfortunately, not in racing shape, but I'm sure he'll be back next week, and we will see Jerome in that familiar BMW yet again next week. But his teammate Frankie holding down the fort. Of course, his co-teammates Diaz and Romero holding down the forts even further ahead. Still been a solid day for Precision Racing Esports. But one BMW of Frankie Arvello still has quite a bit of work to do to get further forward.
But the problem is you are in that tricky situation of, do I go for the overtake and compromise my position and lose one possible spot to Miles? Because Miles is looking, he's looking for that opening. He wants to make that overtake, try and work and seal the deal at the end of the day. But the problem is they are so close to one another, and you have that drive to work with. That it's going to be coming down of final margin. So if you make a mistake, if you sneeze, you lose the position. But it's not going to be a big loss at the end of things. As now we open up one more lap, and Miles looking for that overtake, but cannot commit to it.
Don't sneeze, Frankie. Don't sneeze. Looked like it was actually Matthew Miles that sneezed a little bit there into turn one. Later on the brakes, he's still able to stick to the back of Frankie Arvello, but he was much later. Overcooked turn one just a little bit. The attack is not over yet. Miles is all over the back of Frankie Arvello up through La Caixa. That Aston Martin seems very, very nimble right now. The BMW might be good in a straight line, but Matthew Miles thinks about the inside, thinks about the outside, eventually thinks that he's a little bit too far back. He doesn't have those Francis Castillo Romero brakes on that Aston Martin, and he's going to wait a little bit longer to make that move on Frankie Arvello, but you've got to think it's only a matter of time.
Oh yeah, it is. I think it is only a matter of Miles maybe getting within 0.2 of a second on Arvello and Tremblay, then try to go for one move, and if it finds the opening, he can go for a 2-for-1. So let's see. It all depends on how he actually navigates through the final sector and then set himself up on the first sector.
Bad exit there for Matthew Miles. Not a terrible exit, I should say, but it did not help him whatsoever in catching Frankie Arvello into turn one. Last time he overcooked it just a little bit. We'll see if he can back up his braking just a little bit into turn one this time. He does. Through turn two, Jean-Marc Tremblay is the one who actually makes a mistake. Frankie Arvello and Tremblay almost side by side coming up the hill here, but Frankie's gonna have to get back in line. He goes for the switchback. Matthew Miles says, guys, please keep fighting so I can get the 2-for-1 special here. Up through La Caixa, Tremblay again offline a little bit, running in a higher groove than you would like. We'll see if Arvello's close enough to send it to the inside. Tremblay's going to block, and Matthew Miles is just going to watch him go side by side continuously here. Arvello still trying to switch back, gives him a little bit of a bumper, but that is a very, very wide BMW and a very, very narrow part of the track, and once again, nothing's going to change in this battle for ninth.
So, Joey, what you're saying is the BMW just being a BMW?
Yes, it's doing exactly that.
Okay, fair.
Frankie Arvello might need to start getting the BMW bumper out if he can't get by Tremblay here, because this is going to be a difficult move. Tremblay's made mistakes. He made a mistake on that last lap, but it is so hard to make a move at Barcelona normally. It's now so hard to make a move at this national layout that Frankie is going to have a very, very tough time actually making this move. He's going to have to find those Francis Castillo Romero brakes if he wants to actually make the move maybe later on in the lap. Sean Mulholland thinking about a move into turn one here, and his fellow Aston Martin of Barazza almost turns him on the straight there. The door is just barely left open by Luis, and on the outside line, Luis is going to lose all that momentum up the hill. He is going to be able to recover that position. Mulholland tried to fight back on the outside, but just the way this track rolls, the way the undulations and the elevation changes work, you really don't want to be on the outside coming up the hill there.
No, absolutely not, because you got disadvantage. Even though if you stay side by side on paper, you would be the advantageous guy going to the apex of the next corner, which would be turn number 3 and 3, which is TV3. So, but even if you get the advantage, it would be a huge time loss, and that would open up the many possibilities for other people to come and make this a little bit more complicated for yourself. So if you have to be mindful of where you make the overtakes around the track, and if you may go for that overtake, you need to capitalize on it. Otherwise, it's half a second to a full second time loss.
Mulholland not going to be quite as close through the final corner this time. It's just a little bit of a Barazza train with Mulholland, Anthony Dring, Drew Lidke, Vincent Bissonette as well. Nobody's really able to close anything down. The gap up front as well has expanded. Justin Ream has pulled a full 1.5 seconds over Michael Diaz, who's now actually under attack from Adam Brockway. That's the real battle on track as that closes down. Looks like Barazza's going to hang on to this position ahead of Sean Mulholland as well. Dring in the Mercedes. He is just riding that yellow sausage curb coming up the hill there. I don't think there's going to be much of a floor on that Mercedes left, but that thing looks very fast. It's an incredible exit through La Caixa, but he's going to have to make it work to the outside.
But he can make that work, and I think just taking a quick look right here, I want to say he wants to be aggressive, but I don't think Mulholland was aggressive right there. I think he's just playing the right proper traffic game and just let Dring make that overtake at the end of the day. So that was marked, but the thing is about what cost.
Now he's under attack from the 121 of Drew Lidke, and that's not Vincent Bissonette behind. I misidentified that car. That's actually the lapped car. That's the 26 of Fernando Ayaquez, who is actually not a lap down. He was just at the back of the field. He's currently recovering his way forwards. Now that we've properly identified all the cars in this train, we can continue to watch it rage on. You can see Anthony Dring up ahead. Oh, that's way too late in the brakes for the 121. Drew Lidke completely misses his braking, bounces off the walls. Was that late braking, or was that a equipment failure? I'm not so sure. It was pretty spectacular either way.
Oh, let's look on the. Oh no, that is full on brakes. Not equipment failure, but I think he got caught off by surprise right there.
I think Drew Lidke might have forgotten we were at the national layout there and realized too late. Palacio. Oh my goodness, two BMWs still trying to battle each other here in the tightest section of the track. Matias Arangua holding up a little bit of a train here for P6, but Palacio's been driving his way forward. He has been a very, very quick driver in that SRT eSport number 93. Last lap was 0.2 quicker than Matias Arangua. He's probably going to need a little bit more than 0.2 per lap, though, to actually make this move in the draft coming into turn one. Will he be later on the brakes than Arangua? Yes, just a little bit, but Matias is doing a perfect job of, again, being a BMW driver and just parking that car in exactly the right places.
Yeah, and not giving any room to run for Palacio to try to make an overtake, and even he's actively looking for those moves. It's just that Arangua is just making a very good defense, a very good case for him to defend and not allowing the number 93 to come in. That also brings Brown a little bit. Doesn't get within the fray of making overtakes, but still within that opening of if anything happens, Brown can capitalize. Meanwhile, I think you've been noticing, just like I am as well, Ream just decided that Diaz and Brockway are inexistent in this race.
Yeah, it's just like 1/10 per lap, 2/10 per lap, but the gap just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding. But we'll see. Maybe Michael Diaz is saving something. We're still not even halfway in this race, so I don't know. Maybe Michael Diaz is saving something for the end of the race, and he'll catch Justin Ream back up. But we got a lot of time to wait before we can think about strategies to the end of this race. It's a little bit of a Barcelona train right now. Matias Arangua still holding up Palacio, still holding up Brown, still holding up Tremblay, Frankie Arvello behind as well, and Matthew Miles in that bright green Aston Martin still has not been able to make the move on Frankie Arvello. He's got some of his teammates from Monkey Butt Rides in the chat right now, kind of egging him on. Come on, Matt, make the move at the back of this train. Hopefully he's reading the chat. Hopefully you can take some of that as inspiration, but still hasn't been able to make the move on Frankie Arvello. Pit stops should be coming up soon here. They usually come, basically at the hard end of the fuel tank here. But halfway in the race, some drivers elect to come down pit road. Some might elect to get out of the Matias Arangua train here. But we will have to wait and see as the clock keeps ticking on and the train keeps chugging on. Palacio, speaking of the pit cycle, he's the first taker. He gets out of the Matias Arangua train, and he's going to be the first driver to come down Barcelona pit lane. Is that going to work out for him in the grand scheme of things? He's only going to jump Arangua, I think, with how big that gap is between him and 5th place Patrick Bachelard, but he clearly thinks it's going to be too hard to make that move on track. Might as well try something in the pits.
Yeah, from what we're looking, is just being very complicated for you to go for overtakes and not lose time in the process. So this might be the logical choice as we see the 127 of Tremblay just trying to fit for Frankie Arvello, not right behind his Miles. So I think this is the time that Arvello might try to find the opening and go for that overtake. Maybe a switchback on the apex. No, it doesn't look like it. They're going to stay conservative for Lakaisha.
Jean-Marc Tremblay still holding off Frankie Arvello. It's so hard to do a switchback of that corner because it's just the optimal strategy for the driver in front of you. Just park it on the apex, and then you're just kind of completely out of luck. It's Barcelona is a track that's famous for being difficult to make moves at, but it's always kind of exacerbated when you put pretty big cars on it, like a GT4 or a GT3. It's a tough place to pass, and I think that makes the ones you actually make even more rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the fun thing. We would be seeing like that. It is like that just on the national layout, but even on the GP layout, whenever we see races, not just here at PRL, but also other places where we cover things at RaceSpot, making overtakes in here, it's very difficult, even though you have more overtaking opportunities or places for you to try to set up an overtake. So this is what is interesting for Barcelona.
He's going to get to the inside here. Frankie Arvello's finally found the inside, and he's finally by Jean-Marc Tremblay. I think that's all we needed to do. We just needed to mention how hard it is for him to make an overtake, and he's finally going to get it done. He finally nailed the exit from Lakaisha there. Finally got to the inside of Jean-Marc Tremblay before he could defend. And Frankie Arvello is up into 8th. He can look up to the secondary train now and see if he can be the one who breaks up the Matias Arangua group.
Question is, can he break away, given the fact that he lost a little bit of contact and time in there, as we see Grulon try to go for an overtake on the outside going into the rock chicane. It's not going to work.
Well, he's trying to make it work, but they're going to have to resolve that very, very quickly. And I think smartly, Liam Park decides to back out of that. And also Luis Barazza, you just saw him in the middle of the runoff there. I have no idea what happened to Luis under breaking into the chicane. He's trying to figure out how to recover here. I think he might be completely lost in that sea of asphalt there. Let's see what happened to Luis Barazza. Did he get any help, or did he just spin himself? Oh, he got help. Fernando Ayaquez turns him around.
And just a little bit of a suboptimal movement right there. Unfortunate. As we see now, Miles trying to go for that overtake on Tremblay, and just cannot find that opening. Tremblay just, I think he's doing his best to keep in touch with Arvello as we currently speak. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for the 127 for the way he's driving to keep up in touch with the number 28 out of Arvello. So I think Miles is going to be able to make that overtake. If not, just go into the pit lane and go for your service and go for that undercut.
I was about to say I couldn't see Matthew Miles on my screen, so you might have just called that, but no, he was just hidden by the ticker. Matthew Miles still moving around on track, still trying to get by Tremblay and Arvello the old-fashioned way. Again, very late in the brakes into turn 1. Tries to turn that into a little bit of a switchback for turn 2, but you're not going to get by you're not going to get by Jean-Marc Tremblay, rather, in the first sector with that BMW. But let's see if he can recreate what Arvello did. Up to the top of the hill here, up over the top of the hill. It looks like it's a pretty solid exit for Matthew Miles. Is that good enough, though? Is he close enough? It's certainly closer than he's been before, but he doesn't think he's close enough. He already peeks to the outside. He's not going to send it to the inside of Tremblay. He's going to try and find another place to get by, but there's not that many of them, and I think he might need to take advantage of his best shot there into turn 10.
Which again makes the case of why Barcelona is one of the hardest tracks for you to overtake in your racing period.
Whoa.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Oh,
whoa.
that would be one way to get by Jean-Marc Tremblay. Too late in the brakes into the chicane, but he just barely got that thing stopped. That was terrifying for us, and I think that probably was terrifying for Matthew Miles too.
But it does show that the ABS brakes work within that Aston Martin.
Aston Martin, you want to be a sponsor of the Precision Racing League? We'll continue to show off the ABS capabilities of your cars. Just give us a call. But he's still going to be on the attack here. Dean Giroux behind has elected to stop watching these two battle. He's going to bring it down pit lane this time. The pit cycle has well and truly begun. 15 minutes left to go in this race. We're well past halfway. Everybody's going to start thinking about pitting soon. But we've just got to wait for, I think, the hard limit of this fuel tank. For a lot of these drivers, they've got no real reason to come in early. They're going to come out in traffic, especially if they're some of the drivers in the lead of this race. But if you're Matthew Miles, I don't think you're going to end up in traffic, because if you pit, you're probably going to find a window between Palacio and Hoskins, I think, and it's not been easy to get by Jean-Marc Tremblay, so you got to try something here.
I agree. I would say go for a different strategy, as we see Castillo Romero going to the pit lane. And this is one thing that GT4s don't have the benefit of in comparison to the GT3s or the GTEs or GT2s even specifically. In that sense, is that you cannot aggressively save fuel with the clutching, lift and coast, like you normally do with the GT3s. Just clutching and coasting into a corner. You don't have that option. You don't have a clutch, or specifically the GT4 doesn't it, so that makes the job of saving fuel slightly more difficult.
Diaz and Brockway on your screen. This is for second place. I mentioned a little bit earlier how Brockway had been closing it down to Diaz. He is doing that very, very much so right now. The gap is down to 3/2 of a second, maybe even 0.2 of a second with how close he was getting through the chicane there. Justin Ream is checked off into the sunset here, and there goes Michael Diaz, peels off onto the pit lane. But Justin Ream ahead of him has as well. Adam Brockway is going to go for one more lap around to try and find some clean track, but here comes our leaders.
Wondering if someone's going to go for a different strategy, a more aggressive strategy in the field, and try to negotiate that with some fuel saving. For Diaz, I think that's the only option you have to take.
Saw some drivers earlier tonight running out of fuel at the end of the race in the MX-5s. Hopefully it's not 2 for 2 here, but here comes literally everybody except for the two Aston Martins of Brockway and Bachelor. Arang was in, Brown's in, Arvello, Miles. Let the clock tick down for Marvin Frias to come in, and William Brennan as well. Everybody else has already pitted. Watch Adam Brockway here. I have to imagine that Aston Martin is very, very low on fuel right now. We'll see him bring it down pit lane here, and we'll see if he can jump his rival for that position, Michael Diaz. I can't imagine he's going to be jumping Justin Ream. He had an insurmountable lead of about 5 seconds when Michael Diaz came in, and that's still about 4.5 seconds right now. But here comes Brockway through the final couple of corners. There's going to be a lapped car in front of him, but he is not going to worry about that because he brings the Aston Martin down pit lane.
And just don't get a penalty over here on the pit lane. And one of the things that is kind of interesting is that the pit limiter speed until a few updates ago was basically around 60 kilometers per hour. So because of F1 standards in iRacing, because of the W12 AMG F1 car, it changed to 80 kilometers on the majority of the F1 tracks, as we see also Bachelard coming into the pit lane for his service, and now that it's going to give the lead back to Green.
Pretty good stop for Brockway there, 14.3 seconds. That's half a second faster than Michael Diaz. And it looks like as he merges back out on track, that's what made the difference. Adam Brockway has jumped Michael Diaz in the pit cycle. Adam Brockway is up to second and up to the head of that battle. And I have to think he's going to leave Michael Diaz in the dust here. Diaz was struggling at the end of that run. Brockway seemed to have quite a bit more pace. I don't know if he has bring down a 4.5 second gap for the lead pace, but I certainly hope he does. That'll make for a pretty exciting finish, but for now, I think he's just going to try and extend his gap with Diaz by as much as possible.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. I think the key aspect to talk about, I think, standing-wise, is where Romero is. You know, he's in a position that is not being heavily contended with other people. He's been in the top 5, always been in the top 5 in this season, been the guy behind Michael Diaz this moment of the season in P2, and he's actually taking advantage that Arangua not having the best of races in terms of big results here.
Diaz is sticking with Brockway here, a lot closer than I thought on that outlap in the draft. Coming down into turn 1, he's not going to be close enough to send a dive this time, but if Diaz can stick with Brockway, this battle might not be as over as I thought it was. The BMW washes out wide just a little bit, does a little bit of a switchback through turn 2, but up the hill again. Adam Brockway in control here, in line. Up through Campsa, which I think over the course of the last half hour I've repeatedly misidentified as La Caixa, which is in fact the corner that's coming up next. But here's Matthew Miles, still on the attack. He's attacking a new driver now. Brett Pancari ahead of him. He's got to get by him again.
Yeah, gonna go for that late break, going to turn number 1. Just cannot do what we saw a few laps ago, and looks everything looked to be okay. And just didn't do what Litke has done a few laps ago. We caught that on the broadcast.
And the reason Matthew Miles is so far down here, he was in the battle with Tremblay and Arvello up for the last spots in the top 10. He spent 5 extra seconds in his pit box. I cannot tell you why. Clearly a miscalculation from the Monkey Butt Rides pit crew team, crew chief, whatever. They put 5 too many seconds of fuel in that car, it looks like, and unfortunately for Matthew Miles, that means that he is fighting quite a bit further down the order than he would have liked. He's got Dean Giroux and Johnny Luna in between him and his rivals for the top 10 now. Brockway and Diaz still going at it, though. Last week at Daytona, we learned that Brockway isn't really a driver that's going to make a mistake at the head of the field when Michael Diaz is pounding him, but he's still got a lot of time ahead of him. He's still got a 5-second gap ahead of him, and he's still going to have Michael Diaz behind him and a lapped car in front of him. Basically, there's no calm for Adam Brockway right now.
Just checking the laps real quick. Brockway, solid 14.2s as we see. Oh, what happened to our fellow on turn number 1 here, Joey?
Arvello spins around the inside of turn 2. That's going to be an easy way for Matthew Miles to get by him, but let's see what happened through turns 1 and 2, and that looks more like a Porsche spin than a BMW spin.
That's hot.
Brockway, huge defense. He's going to snake it down the front straight, Simon Pagenaud style. But Michael Diaz trying to attack Brockway. He's been so much more aggressive than I thought he would be able to be. And he's going to try and go around the outside in turn 1 very late in the brakes is Michael Diaz. But the outside's not going to work there. A little bit of a door from Brockway. A little bit of a wiggle is actually going to let Diaz get by. Just that little wiggle from Brockway. And he is going to lose that spot to Michael Diaz. Now Diaz plays defender. These two are getting their elbows out. Brockway puts the bumper to Michael Diaz up through Campsa. This is getting aggressive. These two have a little bit of history as well at Sandown. Michael Diaz robbed Adam Brockway of his first win in GT4s. He finally got his first win last week at Daytona in GT4s, so the bad blood's probably gone, but that was aggressive stuff.
That was scary stuff, especially going to Campsa and you have a little bit of bumper-to-bumper action and you stabilize the number 17 going to a corner. That could have gone so wrongly in between the drivers, but nevertheless, race on. We still have about a little bit more than 4 laps to complete around here.
Justin Reams basically on a GT4 track day right now at Barcelona, but these two, Diaz and Brockway, not done. And these two, further back, Fernando Ayaquez still driving his way forward through the field. He's had a few issues today, but he continues his progress forward. Brett Pancari gets passed by the Mercedes now, and Matthew Miles, he's been looking forward all race long. Now he's got to look behind him because he has a very, very fast Mercedes behind him. When we look back forward to Brockway and Diaz, this action never stops up at the head of this field. Through the first couple of corners, Brockway was far, far stronger. Is he going to go for a send into La Caixa here down the back straight? BMW versus Aston Martin in a short straight line. I don't think Brockway is going to be close enough, but he's going to try and force Diaz into a mistake.
Just playing the patient game right here. Just playing that 5D chess right now with Diaz and see if he's going to come out on top at the end of the day. And meanwhile, Here's Jaquez trying to go for the overtake of Miles, just cannot capitalize. Well defended by Miles on turn number 1.
That worried me a little bit. There was almost a turnaround like we saw a couple times in the MX-5s, but Matthew Miles still holding on, and Fernando has to back up just a little bit. We're going to keep cutting back between these two battles because both of them never let up. Now it's Michael Diaz's turn to stake down the front straight. Brockway clips the grass just a little bit on the outside of the straight. Don't want to do that too aggressively. Now Brockway to the outside. Can he be late enough on the brakes? He clips the grass just a little bit. Michael Diaz very late in the brakes. They're leaning on each other again. It's Diaz's turn to wiggle a little bit on the outside. Up the hill they go. Diaz leaving him just enough room. Up over the yellow sausage curb. He's going to be able to hang on, but up over the hill through Campsa. Brockway's going to be very, very close here. He tries to pull a little bit of a switchback, and it actually doesn't work at all. Brockway's not going to be close enough under braking. That was not a very good turn up over Campsa, and he loses all that momentum he was building up there.
Yeah, but we got to give props to Diaz right here, going for a sturdy defense on Brockway. Brockway tried to go left to right, up and down, and to try to make that overtake work, and still could not get past the BMW of Diaz. So major props to the number 17 is why you're not in the top 3 of the championship for nothing.
He's in more than the top 3 of the championship. He's our championship leader right now, Michael Diaz. So even more of your point there.
Yeah, to just try to make my point a little bit more obvious. Well done. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you, Michael Diaz, for being the championship leader. 4 minutes 30 to go. You can do the calculations at home. We're bad at math here in the booth. That's about 4 or 5 laps. Brockway almost into the back of Michael Diaz there. We get one of these excellent cameras from the rear of Diaz's BMW. Brockway's all over the place. He's using every inch of this track. He really, really wants to get by Diaz here. It's a better run through Campsa this time. He's far closer, but does he have the brakes in that Aston Martin to send it to the inside? I think he's going to think better of it here. Not going to send it into the inside of Diaz, but when it comes to last lap time, I think he might think better of a chance like that. He might have to send it to the inside.
Yeah, but I think he's going to do that, and not on this lap, but maybe the next one. Whenever he actually are coming down his final 3 laps, and he really want to be leading in the final lap. That camera, man, I know. Props to Dogie Beer, man. That is a very good looking camera.
It's a very scary camera too, because the camera's like right in the nose of the car, and you think it's getting into the back of the car in front. There's an inch of an air gap, but it's still terrifying. It's like 4D experiences at home. Here comes Brockway to the inside. Diaz leaves the door open, but he shuts it instantly. He knew he was going to be later on the brakes there. Brockway's going to have to wait again for the second sector of this track. It's been very, very difficult for him to make that move. Both drivers are extending the track more and more with every single lap. They're tearing up the grass here at Barcelona. But these two are fighting tooth and nail here. It's a great exit from Brockway again. This might be his best exit of all. Is Diaz going to block to the inside? No, he's not. He's going to pull to the outside. He's going to leave the door open for Brockway again, but I think that's because he knows Brockway isn't confident or isn't late enough on the brakes to actually be able to make that move, even if he does leave the door open. Through the final sector here, Brockway peeking to the inside with every single corner. He's just trying to let Michael Diaz know, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going to be able to get away from me. Even if he isn't able to make the move, he is making himself very, very much known here. Justin Ream, I believe, took 3 to go at the line, as will Diaz and Brockway here. Chances are running out. It's a short lap here at Barcelona. The overtaking opportunities are very, very finite, but hopefully finite is all right for Adam Brockway. They navigate through a lapped Mercedes. Brockway not close enough through turn 1 this time, but set it up again. Michael Diaz a little bit later on the brakes. A little bit too late. Opened the door for a second. But now it's Brockway's turn to wiggle around and lose all that progress he made again.
And just go back into the status quo a little bit more now. Here comes Brockway going to Campsa. Let's see if his exit is going to be really good and try to set himself up once again. Just naking from Diaz happening one more time. Going to La Caixa right now, and a little bit of a deep braking from Brockway to close down the gap.
Miles and Fernando Ayaquez again. These two haven't been able to leave each other's side. We looked away to watch that battle for a second, but these two have not given up. Miles still ahead though, but that Mercedes of Fernando in the 26 is not leaving Matthew Miles be. Through campsites, a better exit for the Mercedes. Seems to have a little bit stronger of a run here in a straight line. I don't think Fernando's too scared to send it to the inside. He's going to be later on the brakes, but he's not going to be able to send it to the inside. Frankie Arvello gets to the inside of Pancari, who leaves him a very wide berth, and it's going to be Mercedes and Aston Martin side by side up the hill here. Fernando Ayaquez has to back out of that. Frankie Arvello going to try and go around the outside for P13, trying to recover as many points as he can here on a recovery drive after a spin earlier. Around the outside, coming into the chicane is not going to work, and Frankie's going to have to wait just a little bit more.
And this look like it could end in tears, you know, just one driver being aggressive towards the other, trying to make that overtake. And Yaquez trying to look for that opening, just cannot find that overtaking opportunity. And Miles, you know, defending with his fierce and being successful at it, and then Arvello is just trying to capitalize. We cannot capitalize at the end of the day as we see Ray take the checkered flag here.
Yeah, the timing was a little bit odd. I thought we might get a white flag, but no, Justin Ream finishes one lap early, and he's going to be singing "I Wish I Were in Barcelona Now Forever." Justin Ream wins his first PRL race in the GT4s at Barcelona. Michael Diaz comes home in second. Adam Brockway behind. That was a titanic battle for second, but Diaz is going to come home exactly where he qualified, and Brockway advances one spot over Bachelard. This battle's going to keep raging on. Fernando Ayaquez still ahead of Frankie Arvello. I think he's going to be too far back to make that move on Matthew Miles, though. But what a way to start this season. 3 different races, 3 different winners. We kicked it off with Michael Diaz in race 1. Adam Brockway won last week. Justin Ream wins this week, and all 3 of them on the podium here. This is going to be a great championship battle between all 3 of these drivers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then we go into a track like Road Atlanta, where we just saw Petit Le Mans being ran, and you get cars being paired up, going 3-4 wide into the backstretch, and then into the chicane to try to get that run into the start-finish line. And with these GT4s, anything can happen.
Field's going to cycle its way through here. Still a couple of stragglers at the back of the field. Michael Diaz doing a little bit of a victory lap, even though he finished second. He's going to bring it back to the pits. But Justin Ream, victorious finally for the first time in the Precision Racing League over Diaz, over Brockway. Patrick Bachelard had a little bit of a lonely race in 4th. Francis Castillo-Romero did as well in 5th. Eric Palacio, Chase Brown, Matias Arangua, and Jean-Marc Tremblay were all stuck together, or at least close to stuck to each other. And then Johnny Luna finished in the last spot in the top 10. P11 went to Dean Giroux. Matthew Miles drove his way forward to 12th, and Fernando Ayaquez and Frankie Arvello both had troubles, 13th and 14th. Pancari, Frias, Mercedes, Mulholland, and Brulon were the last drivers on the lead lap. Marvin Frias, by the way, 31st in the pits to 16th, so not a bad day if I do say so myself. Former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan, I promise I'll stop calling you that, William Brennan. Anthony Dring was 21st. Liam Park, David Slee, Luis Barazza, Vincent Bissonette, Brian Hoskins, and Corey Clark were all the drivers 1 lap down. Stacey Hunter went 2 laps down. Drew Lidke, Austin Harris, and Stephen Hassett all ran into trouble over the course of the night. But very, very quickly, we've got 2 of our podium sitters. I'm sure Michael Diaz will join us as well, but the first guy we get to talk to, the headliner, Justin Ream, you finally won a race in the GT4s in the PRL.
It's about time, right?
That's 3 first-time GT4 winners. Michael and Brockway have both won in other series, but you've made it 3 for 3, and that's going to be a pretty titanic championship battle for the next 9 weeks between you 3.
Yeah, I hope so. It was a good race.
7 or 8 weeks, I should say.
Yeah, it was a good race, and I kind of enjoyed the track. The last chicane can be a little annoying, let's say, but yeah, it was a good race, and I didn't have anyone driving across me today, so it was good.
Well, tell us about this track. We were talking on the broadcast, as is kind of obvious. It's hard to pass here. It's a little bit of a weird track with how we've kind of done a lobotomy of the whole first sector, but you seem to like this place. Why do you like this place?
I think it just flows really good. It's like the national circuit that we were on. it kind of cuts out like the first two sectors, which are kind of the fun, more fun sectors, I should say. But the track just, I don't know, the track has got a really good flow to it. And other than that final chicane, that can be a little annoying most of the time, but I kind of like it.
It's Road Atlanta next week. We go from the kind of tight confines here to high speed all the time, close walls. You looking forward to next week?
No, I despise that track.
Boo! Boo!
I don't like that track at all.
Well, we wish you good luck next week. Either way, I will. I'll keep my Road Atlanta opinions to myself. And congratulations again on your first win tonight.
All right, thank you.
Justin Ream, your victor tonight, and Lorenzo's got to get ready to talk to third place finisher Adam Brockway.
So Adam, hard fought third place. You could have gone for second a few spots right there, but Diaz having some stout defense. But given the fact that you had the DNF in the first race and a win at Daytona, you've got to be pretty much satisfied with this third place, right?
Yeah, I was definitely pumped to get a podium. I figured I'd be a little bit off pace. At this track, I haven't had much time on it. A lot of prep from the hurricane, a lot of cleanup, but definitely hype with that P3.
Right on. And when we follow up with the track that kind of resembles Daytona a little bit, which is Road Atlanta, right? Fast, some fast changing curves. You're basically falling the toe of one another, lead all the way down to the hairpin, and then carry all the back way into the chicane and then the final stretch. Do you think it's a track that fits your driving style well, or it is a little bit of a contrary?
I actually feel like I have an issue on Road America. It's
Road Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta, yeah. Road Atlanta. I feel pretty confident on it. Hopefully there's some close racing, and looking forward to next week.
It's okay. I think that might have been on me regardless. But Adam, enjoy your break, and we'll see you next week at Road Atlanta. And congrats on P3.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Adam Brockway, P3, and Michael Diaz has joined us. Second place, Michael Diaz. That was a pretty epic battle with Adam Brockway for the last couple of minutes of this race. What was that like from inside your BMW?
That was tense. I want to apologize to Adam for we had a little bit of contact in T1. I just went a little bit wide into him and pushed him a little. So yeah, sorry for that, Adam. But the battle was awesome. It was really fun today.
All three of you guys on the podium, you've really kind of elevated yourselves over the rest of the field. I mentioned this to Justin. All three of you guys have one win this season now. You think it's going to be all three of you guys for the championship? And how tough is that going to be over the next 7 weeks to beat both of those guys?
There's a bunch of quick guys in this league, so no, I'm expecting more competition at other tracks. Today it was just, I don't know, one off. This track is really weird. I don't think most people got a lot of practice since nobody really runs it. But yeah, it's good to get a P2, and Justin and Adam are always fast. So yeah, it was fun. I'm just hoping the other guys can give us a little bit more of a headache.
You think that'll happen at Road Atlanta next week? We've talked to everybody about it. Some drivers have correct opinions about Road Atlanta, like Adam Brockway. Some drivers have the wrong opinions, like Justin. He doesn't like it. But how do you feel about Road Atlanta?
I don't think I'm great at it, but I really enjoy it. It's a fun track. It's so fast. With the fixed setup, it might be an issue with those curves in the Beamer. But yeah, we'll just to go and have fun and see who we get to fight next round.
All right. Well, we wish you good luck, and we'll see you next week, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I think so. We got Petit Le Mans coming up, but we'll see. Before I leave, I just want to wish happy birthday to Francis. His birthday today, my teammate. So yeah, happy birthday to him, and thanks to Nang for spotting me and all my other friends that were probably watching here.
Feliz cumpleaños, indeed, Francis. You should have mentioned that to us beforehand. We could have said happy birthday, Francis, on his excellent overtake down at La Caixa. But thanks for shouting that out to us, and like I said, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, later, guys. Thanks. Have a good night.
Michael Diaz, your P2 finisher tonight. Lorenzo, it is now 3:30 a.m. I'm sure you are very tired, but 2 races tonight, 2 solid races tonight. What are your final thoughts before we go to Road Atlanta next week?
Solid race this time by. A little bit harder for you to overtake, but then again, it's this layout that makes it a little bit more tricky for you to overtake. We should see this at Road Atlanta. It's going to be a track that is going to be more plentiful of overtakes, especially going into the chicane. Despite the fact that I also hate the track, Joey. I'm part of the club of hatred as well. Even though Arjuna hates me whenever I say I hate Road Atlanta.
Yeah, you and Arjuna were both on that F3 broadcast last season when I won at Road Atlanta. So you guys should both be big fans of Road Atlanta. I'm offended.
I'm a big fan of you. I'm a big fan of you winning Road Atlanta.
All right, Lorenzo has won my heart back. But anyway, we hope you will be here next week with us at Road Atlanta and in the MX-5s at next week's track that I've already forgotten. I'll have to check the calendar for that. But anyway, thank you for joining us, as always, on another Monday night. We've got 5 nights of PRL action every single week on RaceSpot. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tomorrow night, me and Arjuna will be on the scene for GT3 Fixed and GT3 Sprint action. We hope you'll join us tomorrow night. We hope you'll join us every night for PRL action here on RaceSpotTV. But until we see you next time, from me, from Lorenzo Bonder, from Hugo Luis, so long.